Welcome back to the weekly podcast. Uh, I'm your host, Brand Strong. Got a lot of shit to talk about today. So we're going to get down to business. But first, I wanted to say that yes, I don't know if anybody noticed my little thing. About 2 weeks ago, I mentioned talking about this, you know, grow tips segment that's going to be on the show. Let's make sure I look good here in the camera. Good enough. Fix it a little bit. My awesome background. Sorry about that. But I don't have a studio. This is my bedroom. You know that. You didn't come here to see that. I guess I had enough of that joint. So anyway, let's get right down to the stories. We'll start this shit off in Canada, where in the legalization frenzy that's going on up there, just story after story, kind of pissing me off. I haven't really covered any of it, to be honest. The regulations are probably the most unbelievable package of regulations I've seen for marijuana legalization so far. And it just goes to show you what happens when the legislator pulls this shit together overall. So we start in this Toronto situation. This guy, former police chief, who once said legalizing pot is like legalizing murder. And he is about to launch his own weed-related company. 8 months before recreational marijuana is set to be legalized in Canada, two former high-ranking police officers have launched a new company that connects patients with medical pot. Medical pot. I guess that's what are we gonna do? Former OPP commissioner, MP, and federal conservative cabinet minister Julian Fantino and former Royal Canadian Mounted Police Deputy Commissioner Raf Soccer officially launched their new business on Tuesday. They welcomed media to their first clinic, a storefront tucked into the strip mall in Vaughan. Both men spent decades battling illegal drug use in their law enforcement careers, with Fantino going as far as equating legalized marijuana to legalizing murder while serving as Toronto's chief of police in 2004. The duo had a change of heart after being persuaded by the science and by real-life stories. So there is a silver lining, I guess, in this hypocrisy, takeover shit that's going on everywhere. Is the people that used to demonize weed and hate us so much and whatnot, well, they're finally coming around. And what did it take? It took money. That's all they care about. Alephia Total Health Network, as the business is called, will connect patients to the most effective product for them and will work with universities and producers to research medical applications of the drug, according to the website. Whatever. This is happening everywhere. I'm not going to read the rest of this. It's a lot of stuff going on. But he came around on the opioids too. So basically, he said, days gone by, we all had a certain attitude, he said on Tuesday, explaining that veterans came and lobbied me to enable them to access medical marijuana as a substitute for opioids, and that he was swayed after going on a fact-finding mission of his own. Fantino and Alephia doctors will not prescribe opioids. The company aims to be part of the solution to the rising tide of opioid dependency. Sakur added, quote, we launched with the aim to counter Canada's growing number of opioid users. Both men also say they now support legalized recreational marijuana use with conditions, and that they would both use marijuana if prescribed it by a doctor. Another Canadian guy, he said legalizing marijuana will spark massive bloodshed and a communist revolution. Indeed. What else is going on in Canada? Here's a company that it's marketing. It's not a really a real thing going on, but this is ridiculous. I mean, come on. Um, I don't know if anybody knows this, but there was a WikiLeaks that came out about a year ago. If you're familiar with these sort of things, and basically it was an expose on this whole notion of stone driving and how stone driving basically became a big deal because alcohol lobbyists, alcohol companies were basically paying politicians, putting forth this narrative about stone driving being some kind of a public health menace or whatever. And when you see what they're trying to do time and time again, what they say is we must educate the public and we must tell people that stone driving is a thing, because really no one knows it's a thing because it's not a fucking thing. They're trying to invent this shit and it's complete garbage. And this is like, we're going to see more stories about the stone driving phenomenon. As a matter of fact, there's probably at least one or two more in this set of stories that I have for you today, but there's more than that. It's going to be to the point where this is going to be one of the biggest debates in the country when it comes to legalizing marijuana, if it already isn't. I guess the only other debatable thing about the legalizing marijuana is what to do with all the taxes and what cops are supposed to do with all their free time. So far, they're still making marijuana arrests, so we got to figure that out first. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this bullshit here. BBDO is a marketing firm, I believe, made marijuana strains whose curious names will harsh your mellow. This is a stupid fucking writing technique where they act like, now this is all propaganda too, by the way. If you look at what they're doing here, everything, including this article in Adweek, is all just pure propaganda. And then none of this is fact checked. Nobody's actually looking into science or whatever, but they're talking about driving high. Oh, and it can cause a fiery crash with twisted metal and ruin life. So just making it sound all poetic and shit. It's not cute. It's fucking annoying. All right, that's what this shit is. Because while you're sitting here making cute little fucking smirky, like, advertising campaigns for these fake ass strains, it'll never be a thing because this is just stupid. There's people out there getting arrested for this bogus ass bullshit, and a lot of times if they can't defend themselves properly in court, they're getting railroaded with this shit. Now, back in 2015, there was some information coming out of Colorado where I remember CBS Colorado was reporting that, juries are basically acquitting people that come into court with these stone driving tickets because basically they get a decent lawyer that fights these stone driving tickets. There's no science behind it first. So just because somebody has like a nanogram limit and then somebody blows like 10 times that limit, that doesn't mean they can't operate a motor vehicle. It doesn't even mean they're stoned. So I don't know what the fuck, you basically get a good lawyer, you fight it. The jury should let you go with no ticket. It should be an acquittal. So there's this road safety group called RIDE. Checks is in launching an unorthodox campaign via BBDO Toronto that brings the consequences of stone driving into sharp focus. The consequences like courtroom and slammer time, because that's all they really care about is giving you tickets and making you go to court and jail over this shit. It's a big money maker for police. And, they got to keep talking about this shit like, oh, we got to train them how to figure it out. Making the product itself, the message, the client and agency partnered with medical cannabis producer Believe to actually create three new strains of weed. Believe's one of those big corporate jobbies that came in and basically took over the marijuana industry and the medical marijuana industry in Canada. Well, they didn't do it by themselves. Them and others like them. So that's who they are, just to let you know. So here's the first thing. We're going to see this for a second. Now, what you're listening to here is this focus group, and these people are going to talk about stone driving. And remember what I said. Stone driving is not really a thing, but since they want to make it a thing, then I don't know. I mean, when you listen to people that actually get stoned and actually do drive, let's just listen.
I smoke and drive quite a bit, but I find that it's not a problem for me.
You're able to focus more.
Driving under the influence of marijuana, it's not a problem.
I'm strongly against drinking and driving.
Absolutely.
Inappropriate, selfish. But I have a completely different perspective of driving high.
All right, we're not going to watch the stupid video, but like I said, so people tell you, yeah, I mean, I'm a medical marijuana patient. I consume marijuana as medicine, and quite frankly, I probably wouldn't be that good of a driver because I would be road raging and I have a lot more anxiety if I didn't smoke weed before I drove. And there's stories like that and other stories, and just the general idea that a lot of these places there's a zero tolerance bullshit where, oh, 5 nanograms per milliliter and we can give you a stone driving ticket. And this is a person that when you pulled them over, they didn't look impaired, they didn't drive, they weren't leaving the lane or doing anything like sporadic driving. So it's just absurd to act like stone driving is something that, you need to really crack down on, first of all. And we see time and time again that it comes out that not more people start smoking weed and not more people get behind the wheel stoned or whatever. And I'm not out there advocating for impairment and driving being like married together. Oh yeah, get stoned and drive. Like whatever the fuck that means. First of all, getting stoned isn't something that fucking impairs your ability to operate a motor vehicle very much. That's a fucking fact, man. Quit. With these guys, they think they got the facts. Well, they don't have any science to back it up. They don't have any statistics. The statistics that they've given us so far talking about stone driving are total bullshit. And the biggest underlying thing behind that is the fact that they are testing people in wrecks for marijuana. And that's it. And like I said, it doesn't matter how much nanograms per milliliter you have in your blood. That doesn't tell somebody how stoned you are. But in some cases, you can definitely say, well, that person wasn't stoned because they only had 5 fucking nanograms in their system. No one would be stoned there. But you really can't because nobody really knows. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different tolerance level. But the bottom line is no amount of being stoned would make you not that good of a driver. It's just simply not a thing. The public right now has this perception where when you smoke a joint, you just turn into like instant stoner guy that, oh, wow, dude, I can't fucking react very fast because I'm stoned. That's the dumbest fucking thing. If you're somebody that thinks like that, you need to go smoke some weed and see what it's really like because it's nothing like that. All right. If it was, why would people be playing fucking video games stoned all the time? I always say this. It's like, what the fuck? You think people are out there playing video games stoned because it makes you fucking slow down and have shitty reaction time and bad hand-eye coordination? No. That would be alcohol. So enough of this bullshit trying to make people think that fucking smoking weed and drinking alcohol is the same kind of danger behind the wheel. It's really bad. There's so many things bad about that, But the worst thing about it is you look like a dumbass pushing it. Because even kids that don't drive yet know that it's bullshit. We know what alcohol does to you. Everybody knows what alcohol does to you. Most people have been drunk and knows what the fuck that does to you. Most people haven't been stoned. And when they do think about what does marijuana do to you, and you got people like this putting out straight up propaganda. Why is it propaganda? Well, let's just take a look at that. That's what propaganda looks like. Nice contrasty images and real easy to read text that jumps right out at you. The product, featuring bold white on black packaging and cheeky promotional posters, will be on display, though not actually for sale, at Canadian medical marijuana dispensaries. All materials drive users to a dedicated website, consequencestrains.com, which features a series of informational videos. More propaganda. So, I mean, that's what this is, man. It's pure propaganda.
Believe Inc. is a licensed producer of medical cannabis under the Access to Cannabis for Medical Purposes.
Again, this is that group that, like I said, they probably just took over a region in Canada's medical marijuana production one day, and at some point before that, they lobbied to get home growing banned, and you know how these things operate. This is these guys.
Regulations. As Chief Science Officer, I'm kind of responsible for spearheading and engaging our academic collaborators for product research and development. We're currently actively involved in a number of R&D projects. Cannabis breeding and genetics, cannabinoid extraction and purification, food and drug development. For us, we recognized immediately when they announced that they were going to be rolling out the adult recreational cannabis market next July 2018, public health and safety concerns surrounding cannabis impairment and driving.
Why? It's not a concern now. I mean, it is, but it's not a thing. It's not like you're not seeing, you go to the emergency room and check into it, okay? You're not seeing a bunch of people coming in because they got in a car wreck because they were stoned driving. It's just not a fucking thing.
You know, the associated cognitive impairment that can be caused by some of the psychoactive active ingredients.
Cognitive impairment? Like your brain gets impaired and can't function anymore? That's just not a fucking side effect of marijuana, dude. You claim to be a scientist that dedicated your life to cannabis research and development, and you're sitting here fucking acting like you have cognitive impairment from marijuana. Show me somebody that's got cognitive impairment after they smoke marijuana, please. I mean, short of somebody that just took a fucking dab hit right out of a pipe, a bong. Took as big of a dab hit as they can. But I'll still show you that same person like 2 minutes later. They're not fucking cognitively impaired. That's just
within the
bullshit.
plant. And that is the main reason why we thought it would be great to get behind and support, you know, a great initiative like the Don't Drive High campaign. There's a lot of technologies that are emerging right now to kind of equip lawmakers to be able to identify cannabis impairment.
See, that's what I just said earlier, is they need to identify the impairment through technology. Because you don't drive fucked up. You're not a danger to yourself or others behind the wheel. If you simply just smoked weed and drove, it's not like drinking several beers. It's not like drinking even 2 beers. It's not like drinking at all.
Things like presence of cannabinoid in saliva. They can do swabs at roadside. There can be.
You can do all your development and research you want on that, man. That doesn't prove stonedness. It doesn't prove the amount of stoned you are, and being stoned doesn't make you so you can't drive.
Further follow-up with the request for like a plasma or a blood sample or something like that.
So this is what they do in Canada. As you'll see right here.
My name is Kerry Schmidt. I'm a sergeant with the OPP Highway Safety Division. We do tens of thousands of ride checks every single year. Our focus.
This looks highly unconstitutional, but then again, this is Canada, and I don't know if they have like a Fourth Amendment like we got.
This is traffic safety, and we're out there right now looking for impaired drivers.
Fishing.
Driving high is absolutely illegal. Driving impaired is a criminal offense.
All right, so you said driving high is absolutely illegal. Is it? Is what your definition of high then? Because I'm saying that a lot of people that smoke marijuana aren't your definition of high, whatever that is. It seems pretty extreme to me. Like, you guys are acting like smoking weed makes you like cognitively impaired, where you're just like, duh, I'm too high to even think. And then you're also saying it makes you impaired driving, noticeably impaired driving. I don't see that, man. And plus, a medical marijuana patient that consumes a lot of marijuana daily is definitely never going to be impaired driving when they're just driving after they medicate.
You're subject to penalties, fines. This is a criminal record that can result in jail time.
Notice how he didn't say you could get in a deadly crash and injure yourself or somebody else. He might still, but I'm just saying it's not the worry. They don't
We
care.
have officers that are trained in centered field sobriety testing and drug recognition. There's new technology.
See, this again, we got to train people to make sure they can recognize people that are high, because you're not noticing them fucking drive like shit. You guys are just doing this roadside, just stop everybody and swab them look. I mean, obviously there, it's not a big fucking deal how sloppy you are about it, but in America, where you damn near have to fucking show probable cause, I mean, you got to have probable cause. First of all, you don't just pull somebody over for the fuck of it willy-nilly and then be like, hey, can I swab you real quick? This is America, man. We're not trying to let that shit happen.
That's coming, and we'll have more tools that will assist us in determining consumption or inhalation of cannabis.
So that's bullshit. You're really just picking out people out of the crowd like, hey, let's see if this guy smoked weed or not. And if he did, well, we got a special ticket for you because you happen to be driving. And your science is way not there yet with determining whether someone's high or not based on nanogram amounts in their blood or saliva. It's all bullshit, dude. It's all bullshit.
And someone's driving high and they end up in a twisted ball of metal, either losing their life or someone very seriously injured, it is not worth the risk.
Yeah, you see, the thing about that is people get in accidents all the time, whether they're high or not. You're acting like just guaranteed if they smoked marijuana and then they got in some kind of accident, it's because they were high. That's automatically, that's right off the bat. There's a flaw there in your argument. Also, people get in accidents all the time that aren't high. So you're not stopping anybody from getting in accidents, dude, and you know it. Finally, we have people that actually say that the accident that their friend or loved one that got into was because they were driving high.
It's heart-wrenching because it takes me right back there.
The person who caused the accident was stoned. That's a fact that we know. He pulled out to pass and obviously didn't see the car. Reaction time was off or whatnot.
Didn't see the car, reaction time was off, pulled out to pass somebody and hit somebody in the oncoming lane. That sounds like something that could happen to anybody, and I don't know if the judgment call on that, if depending on the person's driving experience. But my experience with people that get stoned is they're not out there trying to drive fast and pass people, and especially risky passes where there's oncoming traffic.
He collided with a truck in the oncoming lane.
The car engulfed in flames and parents couldn't even identify the bodies afterwards. It was so bad.
Your brother's been in an accident and he's been killed and some of his friends have been killed.
He was full of potential, right? He.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and assume that they're right, that the weed did cause this accident, which it didn't. There's no fucking way. This has got to be one of the most rarest cases of somebody that smoked weed and got in a car wreck. Well, they whipped out into the passing lane to try to pass somebody. I don't see it, dude. I just don't see it happening. But suppose it did happen. Just in the time it took me to say that sentence, somebody got in a fucking car wreck because of alcohol. So this is like, there's no way that was caused solely because the person was stoned. What they're saying here, what they're trying to sell you, is that because this person was stoned, they fucking went into the fucking oncoming traffic lane to pass somebody and hit somebody head on because they didn't make the pass. You can't blame the weed on that, man. That's just straight up dumb driving. Nobody would do that. Nobody would do that just on weed or sober. Enough of this shit. So let's come back to America. We got a couple stories here. Nationally speaking, we got Elizabeth Warren, and we have this new health czar nominee guy, Department of Health and Human Services. Trump administration should carefully consider how legalizing marijuana can help reduce opioid addiction and overdose deaths, says Senator Elizabeth Warren. Medical marijuana has the potential to mitigate the effects of the opioid crisis, she wrote in a letter to Alexander Azar, President Trump's nominee to lead the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Warren cited a recent American Journal of Public Health study that found legalization of cannabis in Colorado was associated with short-term reductions in opioid-related deaths, saying the results are consistent with other data from states that have developed laws for medical or recreational marijuana use. In a letter Tuesday to Azar, former pharmaceutical executive, yeah, he's a former pharmaceutical executive. To say the least, this guy is totally the swamp, so I'm not going to read up too far into him, but just like with anybody Trump picks for any position, this guy's probably the worst possible guy you could pick. Warren asks of him in her letter, as Health and Human Services Secretary, what would you do to further study this potential alternative to opioids? 2, are you committed to implementing evidence-based policies regarding its use? I can already tell you, man, this guy is so wrapped up into the big pharma world, there's no way he's going to answer these questions. What steps will you take to improve our knowledge of the potential therapeutic benefits of marijuana when used for medical purposes? He's going to stonewall the fuck out of that. The Democratic senator from Massachusetts, where voters approved a marijuana legalization ballot measure last year, has also pressed the federal government on other cannabis issues, such as the ability of growers and sellers in the industry to access banking services. She's a co-sponsor of a bill to allow financial services providers to work with marijuana businesses without running afoul of federal drug and money laundering laws. The Trump administration commission, chaired by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, recently rejected the idea that legalizing marijuana could play a role in helping to solve the opioid crisis, despite a growing number of studies indicating that ending prohibition is associated with reduced addiction and overdose deaths. We know Christie he don't see past his fork on that one. He acts like marijuana is right up there with heroin. He's one of these guys. Azar will appear at a confirmation hearing before the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, which Warren is a member. That already happened, and I don't have an update from that. So if anything crazy happens, I'll let you know. But Warren previously questioned the Trump administration's first Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price about marijuana's potential to reduce opioid issues prior to his confirmation, but he was never responded. And I think he ran away from the confirmation. He was the one that had this great solution of creating a anti-addiction drug. Literally, he called it a vaccination for addiction. Fight fire with fire. In a new letter to Azar, the Massachusetts senator also asked about syringe exchange programs and supervised injection facilities, which advocates say result in safer outcomes for consumers of illegal drugs. Anyway, yeah, good luck with that one. Also this week, senators will vote on marijuana tax amendments. U.S. senators are expected. This is another story by Tom Angel. Notice I probably have like 3 or 4 of his stories in here. He is on it. Can't say anything more than that. And if you want to stay on it, hit up Marijuana Moment. And if you want to help Tom, he is looking for people to become patrons, which is right here. U.S. senators are expected to consider 2 far-reaching marijuana amendments to a broad Republican-led tax bill being debated on the floor this week. Both measures are sponsored by GOP Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado, and they concern the ability of state legal cannabis businesses to take tax deductions that are available to operators in other industries. Under current federal law, the 1980s provision known as 280E, effectively forces cannabis businesses to pay a much higher tax rate than other companies. The statute was originally intended to stop drug cartel leaders from writing off yachts and expensive cars, but today its language means that growers, processors, and sellers of marijuana, which is still a Schedule I substance under federal law, can't take business expense deductions that are available to operators in other sectors. As a result, cannabis businesses often pay an excessive tax rate upwards of 65 to 75%, compared with a normal rate of around 15 to 30%. we talking about effective rates? Come on, we know that the bigger the corporation, the less they pay. The full text of both Gardner's measures are included below. Gardner's First Amendment provides a simple exemption to the provision known as 280E for marijuana businesses that are operating in accordance with state laws. Gardner's Second Amendment is more complicated. It also provides the 280E fix for state legal cannabis businesses, but requires that they meet a certain definition of properly regulated in order to qualify for the exemption. And some of these are really weird, but if you're looking at this from the perspective of marijuana is already illegal federally, then no, you can't nitpick all these little things and be like, you know what, you can't get the deduction unless this or that. And basically, this is just a bullet list of ways that, you know, the federal government would like to see how you operate your marijuana business. But you know what, dude? The federal government doesn't. So you can just take this list right the fuck off of here. And you can just take this second one. I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, as long as it's a marijuana business, they should be able to do taxes however everybody else does taxes. But the federal government should just leave them alone and not get any taxes from them, in my opinion. One or both of the Gardner amendments are expected to be considered as part of a so-called vote-a-rama on the Senate floor late Thursday or Friday. Whatever. GOP trying to help people out. Well, if you want to really help people out, get marijuana off the CSA. That would help everybody. U.S. hemp production doubles in 2017. Colorado grows twice as much as anyone. Colorado grows almost 40% of all the hemp in the country and more than twice as much as any other state. Not to be confused with its more infamous psychotropic cousin marijuana, hemp is used for items ranging from medication to medical research to textiles. That's a pretty weird list. All right, we know, if you're familiar with hemp, that it's basically, it can replace everything. You know, it's basically a textile and building materials and you name it. So we can use it for fuel. You can use it for food. There's, just Google it, man. Hemp is like probably the biggest industrial crop there ever was and is, and there's only a couple things that can compete with hemp as far as durability. And, you know, anyway, advocacy group Vote Hemp 2017 hemp crop report says hemp cultivation more than doubled this year from 9,770 acres nationwide in 2016 to 23,346 acres this year. Colorado's hemp acreage is up from 5,921 to 9,000. One more thing about this. North American Industrial Hemp Council claims hemp can be used to make up to 25,000 products. Vote Hemp's 2017 U.S. hemp crop report said that 32 universities conducted hemp research this year and that 1,456 state hemp licenses were issued to researchers and cultivators. Forbes magazine cites a report by Brightfield Group projecting that hemp-derived cannabidiol, CBD, will be a $1 billion market in 3 years. Brightfield estimates that CBD sales topped $170 million in 2016. So good news on the hemp front. And there's where states, these are still the research states, the green ones. And I don't know. It seems like we should, this should all be green. This should all, there's no reason why anybody isn't growing hemp right now. Oh yeah, it's because the government has it on Schedule 1, just like anything else. Here's an example of somebody that's really on drugs and driving, all right? I pulled this story just so I can read it to you and, you know, this is what it is. This is what they want people thinking of stone driving. Marijuana will never get you this fucked up, all right? Let's check out what really getting behind the wheel fucked up on drugs looks like. Now, we could do this with alcohol too, but usually alcohol is pretty cut and dry. Somebody passes out at the wheel, or they're so fucking drunk they can't keep their car going straight down the road, or they're going way too fast for the churn that they have to do. There's no like conversation later. The guy's either dead or he's in the hospital a couple days. So this guy was arrested at gunpoint late Friday after allegedly trying to hit a sheriff's deputy with his truck. Said he might have been under the influence of a powerful hallucinogen, but wasn't sure. Please test my blood for PCP. I think this is PCP. It does not feel like crystal. Well, so your choices are crystal or PCP. That's what this guy's on. He also told deputies just after being arrested that he just woke up and didn't know what was happening, as well as other nonsensical delusional statements. Quote, everything felt like it was like I was a cartoon. There were devils and shadows talking to me everywhere. I knew that I was on a mission to destroy the gas line. I just knew that that's what I was supposed to do. PCP was first given to humans in the 1950s as an anesthetic, but stopped after patients became agitated, delusional, and irrational, according to the U.S. Justice Department website. Yeah, but since it was Big Pharma, they let them Schedule 2 it and Schedule 3 it first, and then finally, let's Schedule 1 this shit. But it still got manufactured. It's still being manufactured, apparently. They clocked him driving 96 miles per hour on Highway 82 and tried to stop him, according to a Pitkin County Sheriff's report. Helmer finally stopped in Snowmass Canyon, but put his Ford F-350 pickup truck in reverse when the officer got out of his car and rammed into the officer's vehicle. Wow. The officer then jumped into his patrol car to avoid being hit, according to a report by the Pitkin County deputy who spoke with the Basalt officer. The vehicle then came to an abrupt stop and the driver was revving the engine as black smoke billowed from the exhaust. Seconds later, the vehicle went into motion, spinning donuts, and then again came to a stop. Helmer then exited the truck and lay on the ground as instructed and was arrested. They asked him if he was under the influence of drugs. He says, I'm sure I am, but I don't know what. Unfortunately, they'll probably test his blood, and the only thing that'll come back is marijuana. And they'll be like, fuck, I guess it was weed. During that moment, I observed that Helmer's eyes were bulging as he looked at the arresting officers. At one point, Helmer made the statements about being in a cartoon and wanting to destroy a gas line as well as others. Quote, I was talking to myself in a Jack Nicholson voice, like Jack Nicholson from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Helmer also said. I was purposely trying to run into people's cars, but they kept swerving out of the way. Anyway, I'm done with this. I reminded him several times that he had invoked his right to an attorney, and I could not speak to him about that evening's events, but he just continued to talk anyway. So that's what they're trying to get out there, and they're trying to make people think that when you're stone driving on marijuana, that you're this kind of a threat. But no, guys. This sounds more like PCP to me. NBA, or Karl Anthony Towns, time for league to allow medical marijuana. It is long overdue. Minnesota Timberwolves star Karl Anthony Towns believes the NBA should permit the use of medical marijuana. In an interview published Wednesday, this is kind of an old one too, so basically a couple weeks ago, Towns said he agrees with former NBA Commissioner David Stern's stance that the drug should be removed from the league's banned substance list. And I never understood why it was even on it. Oh, just because it's illegal. But now as soon as you got like legal medical or recreational in your state, why should it be illegal to people that play basketball? Or why should they not be allowed to use it? You're allowed to drink. It's clearly they're allowed to drink. Towns raised the issue when asked by an ESPN reporter what change he would make if he were NBA commissioner in Adam Silver's place. Towns reporters in Minnesota told reporters in Minnesota before the game Wednesday against San Antonio that his experience working with autistic children and his research into the medical benefits of marijuana have helped shape his belief. He said he hoped to help ease or erase the bad stigma about the drug, which he said he has never used. Now, this is another situation like we seen earlier with those former cops in Canada that are talking about, oh, you know, I finally seen the light once after these veterans were petitioning me and whatnot. And I get that, you know, and that's what's going on here. You know, this happens time and time again with cannabis, medical marijuana, and otherwise. People don't really know about it. You know, we need a better education process to combat the reefer madness, which is just out of control these days, and B, educate people about the real medicinal benefits of marijuana. And C, let's get real about this shit, guys. Why does the NBA care whether or not somebody fails a fucking piss test for marijuana? What's the big deal? It affects the game performance zero, whether you're stoned while you're playing basketball or whether you're not. I've heard some basketball players even say they play better when they're stoned. Go figure, you know. We live in the opposite world. In the opposite world where a peaceful pot smoker isn't allowed to have a firearm to protect your property from fucking bandits and thieves. At least that's the way, you know, the government wants you to believe. And kind of to emphasize that point, trying to zoom in on this a little bit, but to emphasize this point and to actually do something about it, to be proactively doing something about it, I guess. This is a letter that they're sending out to people with, I believe medical marijuana cards is the list that they're going on here. And it's from Hawaii, Chief of Police Susan Ballard, City of Honolulu. This letter is to inform you that under the provisions of the Hawaii Revised Statutes HRS Section 134-7A, you are disqualified from firearm ownership, possession, or controlling firearms. Your medical marijuana use disqualifies you from ownership of firearms and ammunition. HRS 134-7.3, seizure of firearms upon disqualification. If you currently own or have any firearms, you have 30 days upon receipt of this letter to voluntarily surrender your firearms. Did you hear that? The NRA? Where the fuck are you, NRA? You're supposed to be the people that protect the Second Amendment. You're supposed to be the people that champion gun ownership rights in this country. Where the fuck are you, Wayne LaPierre, or whatever the fuck your name is, or whoever's running that shit show these days? I know you're just somewhere in your Scrooge vault swimming in your fucking gold coins and shit, but where the fuck are you on this? This is some literal government agency literally coming to literally take somebody's fucking guns. What do you got to say about that, NRA? You haven't said shit about this since this started a couple years back when, you know, the question was posed and medical marijuana was like, no, you can't get a gun if you're a medical marijuana card. So the NRA is just going to be completely quiet again on this. And this is a literal attempt at a government to come in, confiscate people's firearms. You must voluntarily surrender your firearms permit and ammunition to the Honolulu Police Department or otherwise transfer ownership. Now, permit, this indication here that this letter might be sent out to people on a list of people that have gun permits too. A medical doctor's clearance letter is required for any future firearms applications or return of firearms from HDP evidence. So I guess they know the people that have the medical cards, and now they're going to be like, okay, I went back to the doctor and he said I'm no longer going to have to be on medical marijuana, so I got off of it. Can I have my gun back? What the fuck? This is ridiculous. People get prescribed deadly opiates and things like benzodiazepines that make you completely fucking forget what's going on and not know what the fuck's going on if you take too many of them. Somehow they can have guns. You could be on like every fucking schizophrenic medication in the book, and you can go buy a fucking gun and register it. But if you're on something and you don't have a prescription for it, or it's not legal because it's medical marijuana and the federal government thinks it's illegal still, they're coming for your fucking guns. Personnel of our firearms unit are available to assist you. Please contact Officer D. Cruz at blah, blah, blah if you have any questions about your disqualification. So again, I don't know if this was sent out based on the list that the government of Hawaii has for people that are registered medical marijuana patients, but I guarantee you that list is going to get a lot smaller next year. And then it could have also came from the list of, you know, people that have registered firearms. Or they could have crossed these lists together and found out who has medical cards and firearms at the same time. You see what I'm getting at here is the problem is we don't want to be on no fucking list just because we use medical marijuana. That's where we're at, all right? Why should we be on a fucking list? Why should we be registered as a medical marijuana patient? It ain't like like it's a legitimate prescription anyway. Mallory. If you want to be in the video, just say so. My dog. Anyway. So hey, this is just blowing my fucking mind. You know, I've always been kind of on the fence with gun regulations or whatever, and I basically don't like them. You know, I don't think, as long as we have this thing called the Second Amendment, that you can really fucking go out on your soapbox and justify gun regulations. Because it just, for some reason, there's so many fucking guns that if somebody wants a gun to commit a crime, they're going to fucking get a gun, man. You know, like it's just like, to me, gun laws are the same thing as prohibition of substances. It's not working. Especially when you prohibit substances that are readily, you know, easy to grow like weed, or readily available, like you can basically find the ingredients to make it anywhere. It's just like shooting fish in a barrel for law enforcement, man. This is final word on this. NRA, what the fuck are you waiting for? All along, throughout all the years I've had to like watch these debates about the gun situation, and still the number of people getting blown away every year just keeps going up. Still the number of what you call mass shootings, where more than 3 people get hit by bullets, that's a mass shooting. That shit's like every day now. They don't even make news. Like when someone goes postal at their job and shoots like 12 people, that don't even make news. Somebody goes into their school and shoots it up, that don't even make news. So I guess they figure that they can do this shit and it's not going to make news. The right wingers aren't going to get mad, and fucking the NRA is not going to do shit or even say shit about this. But literally, let me read the sentence again. If you currently own or have any firearms, you have 30 days upon receipt of this letter to voluntarily surrender your firearms permit and ammunition to the Honolulu Police Department, or otherwise transfer ownership. Well, yeah, fucking I did a video about a year ago about that same topic. NRA, what the fuck? Washington considers some home grow options. Out of the 8 states with legal weed, only Washington forbids recreational home growing. That may change. State lawmakers directed the Liquor and Cannabis Board to come up with recommendation on home growing by December 1st. The agency begins taking feedback on its proposals at a public hearing Wednesday in Olympia. Early reviews are mixed at best. Some ardent weed advocates already oppose the LCB's options as too restrictive. You don't need a state permit and tracking system to grow tomato plants for home brewing, they say, but LCB would require those for a maximum of 4 homegrown cannabis plants. Unbelievable. you know what? Just stick with your no growing, because that's just ridiculous, guys. Come on. Quote, I fear this proposal doesn't work for anyone, and in the end result is we'll have home grows on paper and everyone will stay underground in practice, said John Kingsbury, a longtime advocate of home growing. Other weed enthusiasts disagree, saying seize the chance, even if the LCB home growing proposals aren't ideal. Quote, it's about moving the ball forward. That's kind of never really been proven to be a good idea either, because the ball will move forward and then more regulations will be built around that thing that you thought you were going to build on in a good way, but instead they build on it in the other way. So if you start out with 4 plants, then they're going to later on, they're going to be like, oh, 2 of them can be mature and 2 of them's got to, be babies or something. It's just the fucking shell game of regulations on marijuana is just a mind-bending amount of bullshit. I can't believe. It's almost getting to the point where I almost don't even like the way marijuana legalization's rolling out, and I'm just appalled by it. Because prohibition remains intact, criminal penalties still remain intact. The only thing getting legalized is people being able to use and buy it, to the point where you might as well just have the fucking government itself fucking make it, grow it, process it, do all that shit. Because it's just these corrupt players that keep getting involved. So I don't know. We don't really care what Washington Normal thinks about this one. Lawmakers gave the LCB one specific order about analyzing options. It should look at how home growing would comport with Federal Department of Justice edict known as the Cole Memo. That memo has let legalization experiments proceed in 8 states despite federal prohibition, as long as these states adhere to priorities such as keeping weed from children, cartels, and other states. I don't see why that would be a problem with the home growing, but whatever. Seattle City Attorney Pete Holmes was a sponsor of Initiative 502, Washington's pioneering 2012 weed law. And Holmes supports recreational home growing in the long run, but not now, with Sessions enforcing the Cole Memo. At this stage, quote, we need to proceed with caution given the Cole Memo and the current federal Justice Department. So, on balance, now is not the time to move forward with recreational home grows, says Deputy City Attorney John Chauchet, explaining Holmes' view. The LCB's home growing menu offers just 3 options. One is the status quo or no home growing. Another would let adults grow up to 4 plants if they register with the LCB, which would then enforce strict rules such as requiring all plants to be entered into the state's traceable system and make sure homegrown weed isn't being sold. The other option would allow cities and counties to impose even stricter rules than the LCBs. Thurston County Sheriff John Snazza opposes homegrowing, says he's concerned about rip-offs, illegal sales to minors, and the challenges of enforcing homegrown laws. You know what, guys? How about, let's just treat cannabis like tomatoes, because this is just ridiculous. Acting like this is this big of a deal. Like, if you let everybody do the home growing, it's just going to be the same thing as anything else. Some people will try it, some people will fucking not try it. Overall, you're not going to have it swamp out the market. Just ask Colorado how home growing's affecting sales, or ask anybody else that has a legalized system where you can grow your own weed and you can sell weed. Well, we don't have very many of those yet, but please quit acting like if you allow home growing, first of all, 4 plants, that's not shit. Nobody's going to grow anything productive with 4 plant allowance. All right. Second of all, you're not going to have this massive amount of home growing going on to where it's so prevalent that you don't actually have the room in the market for the big manufacturers and shit, or even the medium-sized small business manufacturers. All that's still going to be flourishing and they're going to be booming like crazy still. Home growing isn't going to affect the bottom line of anybody. The Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs sent a letter to the LCB citing those and the potential loss of marijuana tax revenues. See, just scaring everybody. Hey, They're going to steal your money if you let them grow at home. One thing Snazza, vice president of the association, isn't worried about is the feds. Quote, the DOJ has stayed out. I don't see the federal government being involved at all. I don't see them interdicting because of how many states have taken this on, Snazza said. Basically, especially if you got 4 plant home grows, what the fuck? The feds ain't going to come in on that. They're not going to be like, oh, we need to come in and wrap this up because too many kids and cartels are getting access to those 4 plant home grows. Legal weed is abundant. The state has licensed more than 1,300 legal pot growing and processing companies and more than 500 retail stores. Average price has dropped to $7.29 per gram statewide, including taxes included, according to the LCB. But some people still want to grow their own pot, Kingsbury said. Like home brewers, some are hobbyists who want to experience the experience of tending to different strains, of producing their own hybrids. You're not going to produce too many hybrids growing 4 fucking plants, all right, guys? And savoring the look, smell, and taste of their crop. If you consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur, quote, it naturally follows that you'd be curious about all the details of how to create for yourself what you enjoy, said Laura Kaminsky, executive director of the Cannabis Alliance, which calls itself the largest industry advocacy group in Washington. Another thing I would say kind of like that is this is nature, all right? You should be able to experience growing your own marijuana, all right, if you want to. Just like you should be able to experience growing your own tomato or growing a fucking house plant or growing a flower bed or having a pet dog. It's the relationship of a human being with another being, or a plant is a living thing. There shouldn't be a law to prevent people from growing marijuana. It's medicinal. So you're saying that you got legal marijuana. People can go to the fucking store and buy it, but you're not allowed to grow it. That is just, on its face, just doesn't make sense. Something isn't legal if you can't grow it. The Alliance views home growing as a civil liberties issue and has a strong desire to see adults granted the ability to grow in small quantities at home, its letter said. I don't see why nobody's addressed this 4 plant shit yet. Everybody keeps acting like that's not a thing, but 4 plants is not shit. That's not growing weed at home. That's just, you could have 4 plants and nobody would even notice it. And you're not going to notice the yield. No, I mean, you can grow these 4 plants really fucking big and buck the system. But the LCB proposals are so strict, the Alliance favors a ban over the other options. It's because the LCB is basically the gang. It's the mafia. It's the mafia of growers and people that the Alcohol Bureau allowed to, get involved in the cannabis part of it. Washington Normal looked to Allison Holcomb, author of Washington's Legal Pot Law, for guidance. Holcomb said I-502 didn't allow recreational home grows because polling in 2010 showed Washingtonians were uncomfortable with it. Quote, we decided it was important to draft I-502 carefully and conservatively, Holcomb said in a written reply, because of, quote, political risks inherent in asking voters to pass a state law in tension with federal law and one that has never been adopted by any other jurisdiction in the world. But with 7 other states now allowing homegrown pot, Holcomb said the potential risk for Washington is, quote, minimal to non-existent. Potential benefits include a check on industry control of quality and price, she said. Washington Normal supports a 15 plant limit for home growing with no license required, but Oliver said those are more negotiating points than realistic goals. Maybe it's because if you can get somewhere between 4 and 15, you might have a reasonable number. Why you would just go right to 4 and be like, hey, let's vote on this, 4 or none, or, no, that's stupid. To support the status quo isn't very politic, said Oliver, who co-owns a legal farm with his wife. Quote, it's like people who voted on I-502. It's the same argument. they want to grow cannabis unencumbered like tomatoes. Yeah, we do, because it's not fucking a dangerous substance. And if you got your argument as well, we don't want just the average layperson out there to be able to grow a little bit of marijuana and sell it to somebody and make some money. That's always the argument of the government. And it's the argument of the regulated market. They don't want that happening either. Well, if you look at alcohol and you look at beer and wine, you can produce your own beer and wine, hundreds of gallons a year legally. There's no problem with that. Are you allowed to sell it? No. Are they worried that you're going to put fucking PBR out of business? Or the craft beer guy that actually has a brewery and a license and all that shit? They're not worried about that shit. And if it is, if anything, it's still competition in the back of their mind. So what I would say to that is that those kind of people that are out there doing that shit as a hobby are showing people what real quality can look like. And that's another thing that the big industry types don't like, because they know that their product is going to be fucking watered down and not as good if it's mass produced. And the care ain't put into each individual batch. Long story short, it keeps them in check. I think the end result is a bunch of people would try it for a year and realize it's hard work, Kingsbury said, and go back down to the store and buy it instead. That's true. You'll find people that have real passion for it, and then there's people that think they're just, it's a get rich quick. If anything, the get rich quick dream idea of growing marijuana is kind of that. I think that horse has left the barn. It's gone. It ain't coming back. There's nowhere where somebody's sitting there right now growing some weed, except for maybe in Alabama or wherever the darkest reaches of prohibition still, clouds the day. That's where you can still make money growing weed underground. All right. Everywhere else, this regulated market thing is just like, hey, we're here, you're gone. And if you want to get rich, you got to have a lot of money to invest into a big operation, big corporation. It's not like it used to be already, but it's getting even faster and farther away from that. El Paso county official talking mad smack about the effects of legalizing marijuana. On Tuesday, he publicly accused Hickenlooper of turning a blind eye to the potential negative effects of legal recreational marijuana to protect an industry that has generated millions in tax revenue for the state. The governor called Longinos Gonzalez Jr.'s claim absolute nonsense during a question and answer session at an annual winter conference for Colorado local governments held at the Hotel Elegant in Colorado Springs. The clash, which highlights the staunch anti-marijuana stance of many elected leaders in El Paso County, comes as Sheriff Bill Elder is gearing up for an enforcement effort aimed at stamping out hundreds of illegal grows in rural parts of the county that he and other officials view as a public safety risk. Gonzalez cited issues that anti-marijuana advocates across the state have used repeatedly in their arguments against the drug's legalization. An increase in marijuana-related car crashes, which we have to debunk almost every 5 minutes around here at the Daily Dope Show. A rising number of underage residents who have been using the drug, and a surge in homelessness. All shit that happened anyway, whether marijuana was legalized or not. Except for the underage increase, because that didn't happen anyway. All claims that the industry's proponents contend have been debunked, of course. When Gonzalez and Hickenlooper asked Hickenlooper if he believes these trends are related to legal recreational marijuana, the governor replied, "Some are and some aren't." Research has supported both sides of the debate. Controversial statistics from federally funded agencies such as the Rocky Mountain High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, who, by the way, like they just said, are federally funded, and the whole purpose of them is to do reports that basically support the drug war and its continued effort, even though we keep rewarding the drug war with money and funding and heaping praise on it, even though it's been a fucking dismal failure year after year, and it continues to be a failure, and it continues to increase the budget number it needs, and they're already over 20 billion, and it's just ridiculous. It's like 40 years of this Nixonian bullshit, and the only thing that's happened is all across the board, complete failure in every category, every drug, every situation. So the drug war, complete horse shit, yet we keep rewarding them and we keep patting them on the back. I don't fucking get that. But the Rocky Mountain high intensity drug trafficking area is literally people that are writing reports based on bogus statistics to try to justify staying alive. And 90% of what they do is anti-marijuana. They don't give a fuck about heroin and meth and all that shit. If you read their report, it's basically very, very sketchy information about anything. But boy, they know a lot about marijuana. Anyway, these guys have all supported the notion that underage use is on the rise, which is bullshit. Other study has found no change or even a decrease in the percentage of teens using marijuana since legalization. And when they say other studies, they are actually talking about the real hard numbers that's coming out of Colorado, out of rehab facilities, out of school counselors. They do these, they keep track of the data, believe me. And Colorado says, I don't know what you guys are talking about with this youth increase. That's 2 different times I've seen articles in the last 3 months talking about that from Colorado. In fact, one of them was teen use is at an all-time low. Experts and analysts who have weighed in on the drug's potential ties to homelessness have offered varying conclusions. One conclusion I always make is, let's just not forget that homelessness is on the rise anyway. It's got nothing to do with weed. Maybe homeless people wanted to move to Colorado because they're better off there, where there's actual, like, not a chance you're going to go to jail for weed. I don't know. Nothing to do with it, though, man. You want to fix the homelessness problem? It's called the economy, stupid. Nobody ever talks about jobs anymore, or wages, or none of that shit. So, you know, that's the only place you need to go when you're talking about homelessness. Much of the buzz about an uptick in marijuana-related car accidents stems from the fact that many Colorado law enforcement agencies only recently began testing drivers who are at fault in collisions for marijuana, which inflates the number of pot-caused crashes because we don't have a good baseline, Hickenlooper said. The baseline is you shouldn't fucking worry about it because weed doesn't cause people to drive like shit, like alcohol does. Pro-marijuana group contacted by the Gazette echoed Hickenlooper's point about the crash numbers. In addition, because someone can test positive for marijuana use weeks after using the drug, investigators can't be sure that a person was high when the collision happened just by testing his or her DNA. Thank you. That's the only reason that they got these statistics at all. That was the executive director of the Southern Colorado Cannabis Council. Worf attributed the uptick in homelessness to the state's overall rising population. Hickenlooper added in, like I said, lowering expectations of the job market, which doesn't offer anybody shit, and the cost of fucking living just keeps going up, and the wages just don't. So your homeless situation is going on everywhere. Remember, we had a housing crunch? Why don't you blame that? All of a sudden, you're blaming fucking weed. The housing crunch was only like 8 years ago. And yeah, a lot of people lost their shit because of that and still haven't got back on their feet. A lot of people lost not just their homes, but their life savings got wiped out too. Remember? All those fucking cokeheads on Wall Street was gambling your money away. Oh, but no, somehow we're going to blame weed for the homelessness in Colorado. Unfucking believable. Hickenlooper added in his response to Gonzalez that the state uses much of the tax revenue generated by the marijuana industry to pay for substance abuse prevention and treatment initiatives, such as programs that educate teens about the dangers of using pot, which is stupid as fuck, doesn't make a bit of sense, and it's a waste of money. It's like, oh, we're going to, use the weed money to fucking start up our own DARE program. This is fucking ridiculous. You guys are looking pretty stupid with that one. Anyway, last year, the industry generated roughly $200 million in revenue from the state from taxes, licenses, and fees, according to the Colorado Department of Revenue. Quote, "We're not taking that money and using it to fill potholes," Hickenlooper said. Gonzalez and fellow county commissioners Mark Waller and Stan Vanderwerf weren't satisfied with Hickenlooper's reply to the question. Quote, "Some of his comments today seem to indicate that he doesn't understand the damage that recreational marijuana is doing to Colorado," Vanderwerf said in an interview. Waller said the governor seemed to brush off his concerns about illegal grows when he spoke to the Hickenlooper early that morning. And I say to that, you're full of shit. This is a serious statewide problem that has happened as a result of legalization of marijuana. You know what you do with an illegal grow? You go bust it. And when our governor even tacitly endorses legalization, he does further harm to the security of our state. You guys are crazy, is what I say to you prohibitionists. Just go away, all right? This isn't an experiment anymore. It's a done deal. So shut the fuck up. The sky didn't fall, and all this shit you're talking about is you just being a fucking asshole about marijuana still. Sheriff Elder said in a recent interview that his office is aware of more than 550 marijuana home grow operations in rural areas of the county that aren't in compliance with state law. That's probably 5 or 10, or will be in violation beginning January 1st due to a policy change. Unfortunately, we'll see if they downsize or what the fuck happens, but non-commercial grower is now allowed up to 500 plants. Now that's some, marmbo jarmbo, but you basically got to look at how they come up with that. And it's based on a certain amount of plants that each adult can have. So that's a maximum of a house full of adults, I think. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. All right. You had plant counts for you and your patients. And that's how you get to 500. Plus you can have some recreational plants per adult, 12 or something like that. But they're trying to cut this down. They're trying to make it so that if you're a medical grower, you're only going to have 24 plants for you and 24 for your patients, maybe. I'm not sure. Elder plans to divert his office's mounted unit, 2 deputies on horseback who now perform traffic control enforcement related to homelessness and other duties, to work alongside another sheriff's deputy and investigators with multi-jurisdictional Metro Vice Narcotics and Intelligence Division to bust grows that will soon be illegal. And then you're going to cause more homelessness because you're just taking the livelihood away from people that are basically not even breaking the fucking law. It's these large grows that are clearly there for commercial purposes to export the product outside of the state of Colorado for financial gain. Those are the ones we're focusing on. We're finally going to have law on our side instead of a vague policy. You know what? You're full of shit, dude. You're talking about legal grows that are legal now that are going to be legal then. And maybe you can just bust them right on the spot the day that the fucking law changes on January 1st. That's what you're probably ramping up to do, is just go out on January 1st and do some kind of a big crackdown. We'll see how that turns out. But these guys got a real itchy trigger finger. I think 90% of what they're saying is just total bullshit. The sheriff is also weighing options for what to do with the large quantities of marijuana plants and products he anticipates the push will yield. The agency has considered investing in an incinerator or storage unit, Elders said. See, this is what you call itchy trigger fingers. They are really dying to get in there and make all these busts and seize all this property. And to them, that's fun. That's what they signed up for the fucking job to do in the first place. Critics argue there's no valid public safety reason for the plant caps. And a lot of people are going to fight it, and a lot of people are just going to grow through it and be like, fuck you. And if you bust them, they're going to get a jury trial, and then they're going to get out of it. Because you conservative right-wing nut jobs that want to run this authoritarian drug war thing like it's fucking do or die, or, you guys are on your way out, man. You're going away. finally going away after all these decades. It's almost done. It's almost over. We still have to worry about you kicking and screaming while the corrupt big manufacturers of pharma, alcohol, and tobacco, while they're still fighting with every dollar they can to keep marijuana as illegal as they can keep it until the very last state legalizes marijuana or whatever. Until all that, you guys are still going to be out there fucking doing your thing, because that's just what you do. You hate fucking weed. You hate people that smoke it. You hate people that grow it. And that's all there is to it. There's no more to it. And as long as there's a possibility that you can enforce a weed law, you're out there trying to do it. It's unfucking believable. Unbelievable. Critics argue yeah, we already read that. So the wharf of Southern Colorado Cannabis Council said the new arbitrary plant limits are part of an effort by law enforcement agencies across the state to gradually recriminalize marijuana to regain more forfeiture revenues or money and property that offenders are forced to hand over to authorities when caught engaging in marijuana-related illegal activities. Most of these quote-unquote issues are absolute nonsense. And you know what it is? You're right. And on January 1st, we're going to see the first shot across the bow to see exactly what these fuckers are talking about. All right, New Jersey, out with Christie and in with Murphy. And apparently he tapped cannabis advocate as a chief of staff. The momentum to legalize recreational cannabis in New Jersey continued to grow, adding fuel to speculation that New Jersey could be the next state to legalize recreational marijuana. Incoming Governor Phil Murphy has selected Pete Camarano as his chief of staff, the Record reported. Camarano founded the New Jersey Cannabis Industry Association, which campaigns for adult use legislation or legalization in the Garden State earlier this year. What you need to know, Murphy pledged while running for office that he would legalize recreational cannabis possibly within the first 100 days in office. If New Jersey legalizes adult use through legal legislation, it will be the first state to do so, although Vermont also is in the running to do so. State Senate Senator Nicholas Scuttari, the main proponent of the marijuana legalization bill for New Jersey, expects to see movement on his bill early in Murphy's first term. Murphy takes office in January. Camarano's marijuana trade group was joined in the cannabis push this month by the New Jersey Marijuana Retailers Association. So moving right along, New Jersey, supporters turn in petition to legalize cannabis in North Dakota. Unbelievable. Because North Dakota, as we all know, is a right-wing fucking nightmare. But it seems like a lot of people smoke weed and use medical marijuana. Supporters of legalizing recreational marijuana in North Dakota are once again hoping to bring the matter to voters. Secretary of State Al Yeager says he received a draft petition on Tuesday and is reviewing it. If it's approved, supporters would need to gather and submit at least 13,452 valid signatures to get a proposed measure on the ballot. Petition sponsor Dave Owen of Grand Forks says the petition seeks to make it legal to grow, possess, use, and distribute marijuana for people 21 and older. It also seeks to seal the records of anyone convicted of marijuana-related crime that would be made legal under the measure. Supporters of legalizing marijuana fell short on the petition in 2016. Now, we're going to hear this term a lot over the next few years, sealing the record of anyone convicted of a marijuana-related crime. Sealing records doesn't mean you got expunged. It means you still have a felony on hand. Like whatever felonies prevent you from doing, usually a sealed record guarantees you won't be able to do it. It's just like a violent felony. But at the same time, it prevents somebody from knowing that your felony was related to marijuana. And I would argue, who cares? And there's another full extent of sealing the record where, I don't know. It still shows up as a felony, so I'm not sure sealed record is that good of a deal. One thing's for sure, getting your record wiped clean would be cool too. But one thing's for damn sure is it ain't gonna be too much longer in the future where it doesn't fucking matter if you have a marijuana conviction on your record. Because people, employers, colleges, and shit like that will look at it and just be like, oh, whatever. And if we got to mandate that and make a law to say that, hey, you can't hold someone's past marijuana convictions against them, then we'll do that. So what's been done to the marijuana smoking community in this country for the last 80 years is a fucking crime against humanity. All right? Nothing short of a fucking crime against humanity. What in the fuck, what else would you call it? You're locking people up for a fucking harmless plant for 80 years. You spent over $1 trillion or $2 on this shit since 1970. You have more marijuana than ever before. More people use it than ever before. It's proven to be completely fucking harmless. And yet, we got a fucking system set up to where if you got thrown in a cage before because of marijuana, you have a fucking scar on your life forever. Scarlet letter. It's not right, man. And as we legalize marijuana, we definitely need to expose these crimes against humanity that has been prohibition for the last 80 years. And we need to help people out that's been trapped by this system. So we all know that Michigan is about to vote on legalizing marijuana in November of 2018. But what we didn't know for sure was where the reefer madness was coming from. Well, here it is. Now, this is a Upper Peninsula NBC 6 I've never heard of from Nagwani, Michigan. Nagwani? Whatever. And this isn't an article. Read it up here. Home press release article. This is a press release written by the Reefer Madness people. They're called Healthy and Productive Michigan. The Healthy and Productive Michigan Committee announced its formation in Michigan to oppose any and all efforts to legalize the recreational use of marijuana in Michigan. Now that big money has started to get behind legalizing recreational marijuana in Michigan, and as you've heard my reports, there hasn't really been that giant big money that they're talking about. I haven't really done like a full in-depth report about it, but from the 2 interviews I got from Colin McDougall and from what I've seen on message boards and comment sections, I'm pretty sure that they don't have these big corporate donors or super huge out-of-state donors, because out-of-state people are locked out of the recreational industry in Michigan for the first couple of years anyway. Anyway, besides all that, let's just get back to this bullshit. It's time we put Michigan first and oppose these efforts. Pot won't help Michigan become healthy and productive. You know, the funny thing about these prohibition groups is they always talk about marijuana legalization as if it's going to usher in the marijuana. Look at you dumb motherfuckers. Marijuana has been here since the beginning of time. It's the oldest substance besides alcohol known to man to be something that was euphoric and was used recreationally. Besides that, it's also been medicinally used for 6,000 years that we know of, historically speaking. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about with this shit. Pot will help Michigan become more healthy and productive. Medical marijuana is the best thing you can possibly use on a regular basis. And also, productivity, that's up to the individual, man. It has nothing to do with what substances they use. Although, you know, one could argue that with coffee or whatever, the substances that make you more up, the stimulants, you can be just as unproductive with stimulants as you can. And believe me, I can tell you the ways. So anyway, that's what the organization's president, Scott Greenlee, who runs the Greenlee Consulting and is a longtime political activist who has previously served as vice chairman of the Michigan Republican Party and held leadership roles on several successful campaigns. So it's the fucking Republican right-wing freaky Christian dudes again. Same people that tried to take marijuana over with their responsible Michigan ballot initiative that failed. We remain opposed to the increased marijuana use in Michigan and will actively oppose any ballot initiatives promoting this flawed idea. It's not a flawed idea there, buddy. People already use marijuana. Right now, medical marijuana pretty much is everybody that wants to smoke marijuana don't want to get a ticket for it. But besides that, there's even more people that use regular recreationally, or whatever you want to call it. Several states, including Vermont, Ohio, Rhode Island, is that one state or what? Delaware and Arizona have rejected the idea that recreational marijuana is good for their state. Not really. In Vermont, they're going to do it. The governor was just like, he had some bullshit excuse, but he was just trying to like do what Republicans do and slow it down. Ohio, you had Responsible Ohio who tried to take over the whole thing, and now they're still taking it over. They're just doing it legislatively like they did in Michigan, like they're doing in Michigan. Rhode Island. By the way, Ohio, that was medical marijuana. It's getting taken over right now. But yeah, same with Michigan. Rhode Island, Delaware, and Arizona. Arizona wouldn't have passed anyway. They just too right-wing. Delaware, they were gonna, and Rhode Island too, and you forgot Connecticut. I think Connecticut was like full-blown gonna do it. You could have said New Jersey there too, because they rejected it through and through. Whatever, man. This guy's an idiot. People in states with legalized marijuana like Colorado have found that things are not as they expected. No, you're full of shit. It depends on who you listen to, but 90% of the right people to listen to are going to tell you that the sky didn't fall. Colorado's just fine. Thank you very much. Now there seems to be a lot of buyer's remorse among groups representing children. No. The business community. No. Faith-based organizations, probably. They fucking hate weed more than anybody else anyway. So of course they hate it. But the problem is these guys, these faith-based people, God bless your souls, should be happy about legalization. You know why? Because people aren't going to fucking jail for no goddamn reason. You know that marijuana is a victimless crime? Because if you get busted for it, it's not because you committed a crime against somebody else or tried to fuck with somebody else's pursuit of happiness or freedom or any of that. You ever heard of that? So why would you be a faith-based community that would be for marijuana being something that you could go to fucking jail over? Faith-based community, God love you. Yeah, I know I'm not one of you, all right? I'm a reality-based person. But I don't hate you guys, but I just wonder why you fucking hate weed so much. And I know that essentially it's because when you smoke weed, the first thing you think of is, that's bullshit. This book is bullshit. I mean, Noah's Ark is a fucking complete... How the fuck do you look at that and say that that's literal, like, fact? All right, I'm going to leave that alone, but I am going to say this. It's no surprise that they would be disappointed in law enforcement at all levels, because law enforcement, like I said, they should be happy because now they're free to do real shit. But with real shit, there's no money involved. There's no forfeit, asset seizures, and there's no basically taking people's rights too. Cops love that power. When you take that away from them, they're like, oh, this sucks, man. I used to have this ability to just roll up on somebody, and if I smelled weed, I could instantly take away all their rights, reduce them down to a fucking animal in the back of the cop car, take them to the station and throw them in the, just fucking bullshit that they can't do no more, pisses them off. But at the same time, there's a lot of cops that are happy about it because they realize that this fucking bullshit ruining people's lives over a fucking weed. Medical professionals, I don't know if medical professionals are seeing any buyer's remorse. They don't have no skin in the game, really. I mean, to them, it's like, okay, people can use marijuana or these pharmaceutical drugs either way. Now, the ones that are pissed about it are the fucking corrupt ones again. So it seems like your list is full of people that the only reason they'd be mad about this shit is because it's cutting into their profits or making it a little bit harder for them to be dicks. But anyway, and others who live in marijuana legal states, we will work to make sure Michigan does not make the same mistake. Good luck with that, buddy. People in Michigan are pretty keen on what bullshit reefer madness, so I can't wait to see what flavor of reefer madness you guys have to offer. Healthy and Productive Michigan has garnered statewide support through donations and volunteers. The committee plans to be active throughout the entire state of Michigan, providing education on the issue citizens will consider. That's the funny part. This is going to be a nightmare. I don't know if they're talking about billboards or buying commercial time on TV. I hope it's, I really don't want any of it. I don't watch TV, so I'm not going to see it on TV, but we'll see what happens. Look for them. They'll be there. More details and events will be released as the committee continues to organize and we move into 2018. So there you go, guys. You now have officially a group like No on 205 or whatever other in Maine. I think it was No on Prop 2 or some shit. And I might even have been wrong about 205. I don't know. All I know is wherever marijuana legalization rears its head, some kind of group with a fucking Orwellian doublespeak ass name like Healthy and Productive Michigan pops up, and people like churches and discount tires and pharmaceutical giants, and Michigan is no shortage of people that are interested in keeping marijuana illegal. There's a lot of them. So all the prohibitionists line up to throw their money in. It's not that they're actually buying personal ad time to, oh yeah, I made sure these guys can do this and that. No, it's a contest with them to see who can throw the most ridiculous amount of money at the anti-weed effort, so later on they can brag about it. That's all it fucking is. Here they come. We'll be ready for you. All right, something happened. I just realized it, and I apologize. I feel like I'm at least halfway through the clip here, through this whole weekly podcast, and I just realized that I had the mic on the damn what do you call it? Webcam. My webcam mic was on at the same time, so. Hey, I think it would happen the other day. Like, I was paranoid that basically I wasn't getting any audio at all because I did a whole clip and fucking didn't have the microphone amp turned on. So that fucked that up. Like, basically I had to redo that clip. Anyway, sorry to bother y'all with that. And I'm getting a little bit tongue twisted on reading here for a minute. Let's go ahead and watch this one.
Recreational marijuana.
Fox 32's Dane Plackow reports lawmakers today heard from a celebrity advocate better known for touring than toking.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe.
Rick Steves is best known for introducing millions of people to the wonders of Europe. But today, the longtime PBS travel host unpacked his bags in Chicago to advocate for something else close to his heart, the legalization of pot.
We are dealing with decades of reefer madness kind of misinformation.
Steves has campaigned across the country and poured money from his own pocket into efforts to legalize marijuana. Today, he told a joint panel of House and Senate lawmakers that legalization in his home state of Washington in 2012 has only been beneficial.
When you legalize marijuana, use does not go up. Teen use does not go up. DUIs don't go up. Crime does not go up. What goes up is tax revenue, and what goes down is a black market.
But
what also goes down is people getting arrested.
Republican lawmaker on this panel challenged Steves, saying the issue still needs a lot more study.
He was using broad brushes to say things like usage has not gone up. Clearly, usage has gone up, even by the standard of the proponents.
No. The usage that we've seen with numbers from Colorado, first of all, you have to account for the fact that people are finally willing to be honest when called on the telephone and asked, do you smoke marijuana or not? Or are you for it or whatever? So there's a lot of different factors going into whether or not marijuana is polling better or whether people are actually using it more. But that's one of the factors, is people are admitting that they use it more. What this guy's trying to allude to is that there's some kind of a dramatic increase in use that simply has not been demonstrated. And I would argue that you would have to go to regular old everyday society and look around and tell me where you think these people that don't smoke marijuana are going to start smoking marijuana just because the government said it's okay, or just because you can buy it at the store now instead of the guy at the corner. So I'm afraid that you guys just can't keep saying that, because it's just not true. We've seen marijuana legalized in Amsterdam. We've seen marijuana legalized in whole countries have legalized marijuana. Marijuana's been legalized in Colorado and Washington for 5 years now. We have not seen this increase that you're talking about. So it's not a thing. Quit using it.
He was saying that crime has not gone up.
Crime has not gone up. Literally, unless you start arresting people that are under 21 that have marijuana crimes in Colorado should pretty much be gone. Now, I'm sure you're cracking down on people that are growing illegally and shit like that. And there is like boundaries to the law to keep it within the realm of sanity. And then there's the thousands of pages of regulation. So I don't know what you're talking about with that one, man.
In Denver, crime has gone up.
A bill currently...
Actually, the report in Denver has mixed results, but none of the crime thing you're talking about has anything to do with marijuana. It's just like saying, oh, you legalize marijuana, crime goes up. None of the crime that you're talking about going up has anything to do with marijuana. So I don't see what the correlation is. You got always the prohibitionists think that correlation and causation are the exact same thing or some shit, or they want you to believe that when they're telling you something that they want you to believe. But when you have actual fucking studies and facts and shit, they say that about your shit.
In Springfield would make it legal for adults 21 and older to possess, grow, and purchase limited amounts of marijuana. Some lawmakers say the state needs to get a piece of the action.
I think that the legalization of marijuana represents a tremendous economic opportunity for the state of Illinois to raise additional tax dollars.
And I mean, God save us. The Democrats always coming around to make sure that, you know, we talk about how much money we can milk off the marijuana industry. Man, why don't the Democrats take this upon themselves to make this an issue because it's just the right thing to do? I mean, you're locking people up. You're creating this drug war thing where cops can basically treat people like fucking illegal aliens once they find out you have marijuana. And I just don't understand this, man.
It can go toward public infrastructure, schools.
The panel also heard from a state representative from Colorado, which legalized pot in 2014.
We have a 2.3% unemployment rate right now. So it's not like folks are sitting on the couch getting stoned, eating Cheetos and goldfish and you know, forgetting that they have to go to work.
So thank you there, Colorado dude, for busting the Michigan people. What were they called? Healthy and Productive Michigan. Because they said, what was their quote? Pot won't help Michigan become healthy and productive. Hey, you remember when I just said something about how they take those correlative things and make it causation always with prohibitionists? Did you hear this guy? The unemployment rate's like less than 3% in Colorado. That's probably about half the national average if you're looking at that national number. I don't even know what it is, but bottom line is, what the fuck? How come people aren't saying that? Oh, legalized marijuana must have caused the unemployment to go down. No, we can't get that. We don't get those kind of data. No, we still get called lazy stoners. Okay, I get it. I understand.
Sponsors of the legalization bill say they plan to continue to hold hearings.
Whoever's running this grow operation is definitely not a lazy stoner.
To build support and learn from the growing pains of other states where it's already the law. Dane Placco, Fox 32 News.
Does any of those people that work in this marijuana lab processing facility, do they look like lazy stoners? And commercial marijuana facilities are looking at this kind of activity right here, and they're like, how the fuck can we get rid of all these trimmers? I guarantee it. This isn't going to be around much longer. And weed that looks heavily manicured and really nice with hardly any leaves on it, that shit's going to be a thing of the past with this commercial marijuana of the future. I promise you, man. But that's kind of that's what you get there. Illinois is looking at legalizing marijuana, and probably the first, portion of the year when Congress gets back in session, I think that's where they're heading. I think in March they're going to have something available to take a vote on. And they're going to make a ballot measure for it because there's some kind of special election going on in March. All right. Indiana CBD warning. What do we got over here? Stupid shit. Anyway, Indiana CBD warning highlights legal confusion around the substance. Mona Zhang of Forbes magazine. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb warned retailers in the state to pull CBD oil from their shelves within 60 days. On Tuesday, Holcomb instructed the state's excise police to do spot checks for CBD products that contain any level of THC. Like THC, CBD is a cannabinoid found in marijuana and industrial hemp plants. Unlike THC, CBD is non-psychoactive. Many CBD manufacturers in the U.S. claim that their hemp-derived CBD products are legal in all 50 states. But Holcomb's latest warning shows that such claims can be misleading. Really? Just because this guy warns that, hey, there might be THC in some of that stuff, you're going to say that that's what that shows? No, you got to take that shit to the lab and test it, man. So state police have previously conducted raids on grocery stores that sell CBD oil and even charged a man with marijuana possession because he had CBD oil in his car. What in the fuck is wrong with this shit, man? A local news outlet obtained the same brand of CBD oil that got the man arrested. Lab tests showed that the oil contained 0.000% THC. So you guys are just operating on a complete idiot style situation where you don't even know what the fuck's going on, so you just arrest people willy-nilly and just say that what they got is illegal. Quote, it's unbelievable that CBD oil with no THC in it could land someone in so much trouble. I argue that the THC shouldn't fucking land you in that much trouble either. It's all harmless shit, and it's all good for you. But that's what PSI Labs co-founder Ben Rossman told WTHR. The state's Department of Child Services, DCS, also threatened to remove a 20-month-old girl from her home after her parents treated her seizures with CBD oil. Wow, that's literally the most cruel story I've heard come out of the CBD situation in a long time. Right there, man. Literally going to take away someone's kid from them when they're actually treating them with something that actually fucking works and is harmless and don't even get you high. Not that that fucking matters. But to you guys, apparently that means a lot, because whether or not you can get high off of something is grounds for basically putting someone in prison, busting some grocery store or whatever. So what the fuck ever. And THC, by the way, even in these CBD products, even if you do find some, you would have to have, exponentially more THC than CBD. We're talking 20 times more THC than CBD for you to really get stoned off it or whatever, have psychotropic effects or whatever you want to call it. Realize that the Bible's bullshit. Start to question all things you've ever been taught. I mean, these are the things that they don't like. The psychedelic buzz where you're actually like, think about the man behind the curtain type shit. You know, they don't want you to think past like, duh. To add to the confusion, state excise police sent a memo in August informing officers that product manufactured from industrial hemp, including CBD oil, are lawful to possess and sell in Indiana. Other police departments throughout the state seem to have varying interpretations of the legality of CBD. And they have the hubris to act like they're they're some kind of doctor or your boss or your god or your dad or whatever you want to call it, and arrest you for having CBD because they think they know what's better for you, I guess. Most uncertainty remains surrounding its legal status. Much uncertainty. CBD products are especially popular in the Midwest where access to medical marijuana is limited. As opposed to what? The red states where even CBD is illegal to produce and shit in most states. CBD could arguably be legal under federal law if it's derived from industrial hemp that is imported from abroad. It could also arguably be legal if extracted from hemp grown under the 2014 Farm Bill. But the DEA has a different interpretation of the bill, that the legislation only permits CBD research, not commercial sale of the product. Quote, it's not legal, it's just not, DEA spokesman Rusty Payne told WTHR earlier this month. But in the same interview, Payne said he would give CBD oil to his own child if it helped with a medical condition. Quote, I cannot blame these people for what they are doing, he said. Are they breaking the law? Yes, they are. Are we going to break a parent's door down? Absolutely not. Well, you better call your boy over in Indiana and tell him, like, please don't, like, throw that mom in jail for fucking treating the seizures of her infant kid or whatever, with CBD, because it works and it's not harmful and you're just, like, crazy doing it, man. While CBD consumers and sellers alike at least have some assurance from the feds, it looks like they don't have a similar commitment from the state, right? At least not yet. Halcombe said that the General Assembly will review existing laws during the next 60 days, and he would support legislation to clarify CBD law in Indiana. Well, good for you. Meanwhile, he probably feels like a real dumbass once he learned about what the fuck was actually going on in his state, I hope. So, New Hampshire marijuana legalization bill has been shot down. A bill that would legalize marijuana in New Hampshire has been rejected by a House committee. The Concord Monitor reports the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, you know, the people that don't want to lose any money if marijuana is legalized, on Tuesday voted not to recommend the bill to the House. Under the measure, people 21 and older would have been able to buy recreational cannabis from licensed businesses that were taxed by the state. So we're just going to keep with the old system since they did do a decriminalization. They were like one of the last people in New England area to decriminalize marijuana. And when they did this, the funny thing that they did is they just decriminalized marijuana. So right now, instead of this regulated system that they were probably writing a bill for, you got the black market bringing it in. That's just ridiculous. Opponents of the bill argued legalization in the state would conflict with federal law. Well, who do you think they're going to get the weed from that you decriminalized? The Federal Drug Enforcement Administration classifies marijuana as an illegal Schedule I controlled substance. And it shows how brave you are, New Hampshire, to stand up for your people and not legalize marijuana and let the feds come in and round everybody up and take them to federal prison. Man, how stupid of an excuse. The dumbest one I've heard yet. And I've already heard it before, so, Christie and LePage. The state had previously created a commission to study the potential impact of legalizing, regulating, and taxing marijuana. Marijuana advocates had argued the commission was biased. Of course it was. Earlier this year, the legislature passed a law to decriminalize marijuana possession. And with all the states around you with legal marijuana, good luck. The black market flows good and heavy with this one. All right, now this is a marijuana commercial. If marijuana was allowed to run commercials like Big Pharma does. Now I have a problem with the. I don't know what's going on with. I've seen it on my phone, so it looked fine there. But we're gonna go ahead and try to watch it here. But I think some of it gets cut off. But let's try it.
Do you have trouble falling asleep because of your Adderall? Have trouble waking up because of your sleeping pills that you take because of your Adderall? Are you left in a fog from Xanax and constipated by Vicodin? If you answered yes to any of these questions, it's time to talk to your doctor about weed. Weed is a once daily, twice daily, am I right? Supplement that's been scientifically proven to treat many of the side effects that you're usually prescribed pills for.
I can't tell you how many of life's little moments I missed out on because of the constipated fog I was in after my doctor prescribed Vicodin and Xanax. My daughter's first steps, walking her down the aisle. I was done being spaced out, messed up on the toilet all the time. That's when I talked to my doctor about weed.
Weed is non-habit forming, no matter what Big Pharma or your middle school DARE instructor tells you.
It was tough seeing my dad in pain after his accident. It was just as tough seeing him zonked out on prescription pills. He was so forgetful. But now, he won't stop remembering stuff.
You remember that first episode of Lost? And they were in the jungle, and you're like, what is that? And then they look back on it, it was a polar bear? I don't think they ever explained that.
Symptoms of weed include extreme nostalgia, hunger, drowsiness, spontaneous laughter, and a newfound appreciation for the songs you already thought you liked.
Hey, you guys remember Ace of Base? That was a cool group.
I think this guy needs
Symptoms of weed do not include insomnia, loss of appetite, nausea, headaches, muscle spasms, inflammation, seizures, physical dependency, or the risk of overdose. So if you're one of the 119 million Americans taking prescription drugs and suffering from these symptoms, weed might be for you. And if you're not taking prescription drugs but just want to chill the f*** out, weed might also be for you. Weed. What side effects, man?
That's the kind of commercials we have here at the Daily Dope Show. All right, so you probably all heard about this one. Couple arrested after a hibiscus plants mistaken for marijuana. I mean, can you get any literally like stupider than this? I've looked at dozens of pictures of hibiscus plants, and some of them could be mistaken for weed, maybe not. Bottom line is, it's none of your fucking business. Pennsylvania. Audrey and Edward Kramer of Buffalo Township, Pennsylvania, were reported to police by their nationwide insurance agent for allegedly having marijuana plants on their property. So it seems nationwide is really not on your side. All right, now the thing is they're suing these people for excessive force, false arrest, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and an invasion of privacy. And this is a lawsuit against the police agency that came and kicked in the door. And I think they also included the nationwide agent, Jonathan Yeamans. And yeah, 3 of the police officers. So yeah, Audrey Kramer said, I'm starting to understand why a lot of the public do not trust police officers. Quote, I really feel like I've been smacked in the face with this, and no, I don't think I'll ever trust a police officer again. So the couple say that on September 20th, police stormed their house, harassed them, took their plants, and arrested them, while Audrey Kramer was still in her underwear. The problem for police is that the plants they confiscated were hibiscus plants. Canaf hibiscus, not marijuana. Let's check that out. Yeah, see that there's a couple things that look like weed. There's real weed right there, obviously. Here's a side-by-side comparison. There's with flowers. Here's another one that's purple. So the leaf structure could fool some lay person that really didn't know the difference between cannabis leaves. There's a couple things that really stand out, depending on the strain or whatever. So yeah, one day your insurance adjuster's walking around your property, and the next thing you know it, they think you got weed plants. Not cool. So onward to California, where pretty sure I'm gonna be forced to go ahead and do a full video about California. It's gonna be a long one. Matter of fact, I got a bunch of clips already lined up for it. The new regulations are coming, and with them is gonna be some really bad news for really a lot of people, I think. California officials, well, I guess the headline, new rules with hefty fees set for growing and selling marijuana in California. California officials proposed new rules Thursday for growing, transporting, and sale of marijuana when the state begins issuing licenses in January, and industry officials said the regulations and hefty fees are a mixed bag. The regulations, which are subject to public hearings before they are finalized, do not limit the size of cannabis farms, but require every plant to be traced from farm to sale. Scrutiny will be required at farms, trucks, and pot shops, and cannabis cannot be marketed towards minors. So basically all the same fanfare as we've been seeing with regulations pretty much everywhere. The license application fee for sellers and others will be $1,000 annually. Don't sound too bad, but there are additional license fees of $4,000 to $72,000 charged to retailers based on how much they sell. Okay, now we're starting to get a little bit crazy. Also, an additional fee for testing firms will range from $20,000 to $90,000, with an added charge for distribution licenses will go from $1,200 to $125,000, depending on the amount of product moved. Wow, man. California's making money off of everybody in the chain of production and distribution. And the end user, they're going to get tax money there too. So, what the fuck? Already, I'm like freaking out. Now, you know what? Here's one way to solve this problem. Is remember hemp earlier, what I was talking about? How about California starts growing hemp and sell that? That's one way that they don't need to worry about fucking taxing and feeing every point of everywhere where marijuana goes. Like it starts out as a clone, and then someone buys that. Somewhere, I guarantee you that the people that made the clone are they're gonna have some fees and taxes and all that shit. Then that plant goes on to be a veg plant, and that I'm pretty sure that person's either going to make clones out of it or churn it into a flowering plant. Some of them flowers are going to get churned into oil, or the trim is. Everywhere that this plant goes is going to be absorbing these fees are going to absorb some of the money. They're basically making this so it's not even profitable. I mean, if it is, it's going to be a minute before this shit chills the fuck out, man. While those planning small pot farms worry about the rules allowing large corporate growing operations, others see restrictions as burdensome for an industry that has thrived for decades without regulation. Quote, the industry is diverse, said Hezekiah Allen, president of the California Growers Association. No matter what is decided, there will be problems. These regulations will disrupt a mature and robust marketplace. We are hopeful the disruption will be minimized and that the existing business community will have the time they need to transition their operations and businesses. But just like everywhere else, dude, what you don't understand is that the big money people are coming in. And they're the people that used to be behind the arresting and prosecuting you and all that shit, and the Republicans that represent them and all that. Those people now want to take it over. They want to still arrest you, but they want to also sell the weed and sell it back to you. With work behind schedule for setting up a permanent licensing system, the new regulations allow the Bureau of Cannabis Control to issue temporary 120-day licenses to sellers and growers who have permission from their city or county. Eventually, annual licenses will be issued to those who pass background checks. It's a new thing about these background checks. What exactly do you hope to find in the background of somebody? You know, like, I hope that's not to say that you can't get a marijuana license if you had a marijuana conviction in the past, because that's just fucking ridiculous. A seller of marijuana for medical use must get, and I mean, just for 1 second, let's just look at that. Am I somebody that was growing weed before it was legal? Maybe. Does it even matter now? But it doesn't matter. But at the same time, it does, because people that did that were the original pioneers of, you know, the movement to legalize this shit. Believe me, I'm about to talk about, you know, books. And one of the books that got me into where I am today, doing what I do here, and just basically what I've done before this, is just being obsessed about knowing about all this shit and learning as much as I can about it, is The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herer. Jack Herer, whatever you want to call him. And it's sad that we got to fight every little inch of this battle. And sometimes we get 6 inches ahead and we get fucking knocked back 3 feet. And then you get to the point where you got somebody in California that's been fighting for this shit their whole life. And, you know, they're used to growing 100 plants or whatever. Now all of a sudden someone's going to come in and tell them, hey, we're going to inspect your facility. It isn't up to code, and you can't grow these outdoor plants, not that many of them, and blah, blah. You know, whatever they tell them is going to fucking make their life a little bit harder than it was before. The rules require child-resistant packaging, prohibit marketing to minors, and require marijuana to meet limits on THC content. What? That I don't know about. I'll have to look into that more. However, a transition period will be set from January 1st to July 1st, 2018, during which pot can be transported without meeting label requirements, and marijuana already in the seller's inventory can be sold without child-resistant packaging. Cannabis products that do not meet the THC limits per package also can be sold during that window. So I guess what they're talking about with the THC content is probably edibles, and there's probably limits on, like, you know, making it so they're not, like, super strong, which is ridiculous, because who cares? As long as it's labeled, you know. For growers, the California Department of Food and Agriculture will charge a one-time fee ranging from $135 to $8,655 to review an annual cultivation license application. What? I'm wondering, you know, like I said, everybody that can reach their hand out for money is, and this is just obscene, the money grab that's going on behind legalizing marijuana in California. Growers will be required to get annual license fee based on annual production, ranging from $1,200 for small plots to $77,900 for big farms. It's almost like, oh, hey, right before you even start growing weed, we're going to cripple you with this annual fee. Whatever you do, make sure you can produce enough to take care of this annual fee. And it'd be cool if it was reasonable, but these don't sound reasonable at all. Not on top of all the other shit and all the other hands coming at you for money. You're starting to scratch your head and think, is this even going to be worth it? And B, how is this going to fucking kill the black market? It's going to scare the cartels from wanting to grow legally in California. I guarantee that. Growers also will be required to get an annual license fee based on annual production. Yeah, I already said that. Sorry. Manufacturers of cannabis products, including edibles, will be charged a $1,000 application processing fee and a licensing fee, depending on the size of operation, from $2,000 to $75,000. So on top of taxes, you got these fees, and this is just, it's obscene, the money grab going on in California. And on top of that, California doesn't have the ability to export marijuana another way. Besides, I mentioned earlier, they could be growing, you know, mountains of hemp out there. I mean, California is really vast and has places to grow hemp like unlimited. So what's the holdup? And also, what's the holdup on getting marijuana out of this Controlled Substance Act on the federal level? That would help everybody, and it would help California because they'd be able to export. And finally, we have some good news out of California. And like I said earlier, you're going to hear a lot about this sealing your records style shit. California's doing more than that. Let's check it out. California is clearing thousands of marijuana convictions from official records. One of the most commonly cited arguments for legalizing marijuana is the ridiculous amount of money spent by the government to enforce prohibition. But legalizing cannabis doesn't make up for the many injustices caused over the past few decades by the war on drugs. The state of California is trying to fix that. And like I said earlier, it's basically like a humanitarian disaster, I guess you could call it. Unbelievable what our own government has done to our own people for 40 to 80 years over marijuana. Just locking, you might as well say 80 years. The first marijuana arrest was made 80 years ago, right after they made it illegal. And, you know, that's when the pain started of getting arrested for fucking marijuana. A harmless plant. It's a victimless crime, 100%. And the hubris of the state to continue this war against this plant is just ungoddamn believable. And everybody that's ever been charged with this shit should be right now allowed to sue the fucking government. Sue the cops for kicking in their door, ruining their lives, all over marijuana. The ballot initiative that legalized marijuana in California last November, known as Proposition 64, included a provision that allows for people who receive cannabis convictions to apply for reduced charges or possibly expunge it entirely from their records. Since Proposition 64's passage, several groups have stepped up to help people pursue the legal avenues to get their criminal records changed. Pacific Standard reports at least 2,660 petitions have been filed since last November to change a person's records, and at over 1,500 of those requests have been granted. And by the way, California has already been in the process of booting nonviolent drug offenders out for the last, 5 years or more. Although those numbers are simply from self-reports made by various counties in the state. Public defender offices say they believe the number is much higher, and the board that reports about these petitions doesn't reveal how many of its petitions have actually been changed. California is not alone among legal states expunging marijuana convictions. Colorado earlier this year passed a law that would seal a person's records if they were convicted of a crime that would now be legal in the state. But California definitely goes the furthest. And some legal states have no such system in place. Like Washington State, for instance, has passed no law allowing for the expungement of records for marijuana convictions. There is a system for people to get their criminal records sealed or expunged in the state, but it requires the person to wait years after their sentence has completed. So will California's system become the model going forward? Probably not. A marijuana law expert told the Pacific Standard that while cannabis legalization is hugely popular amongst Americans, allowing people who have broken the law in the past to walk away with a clean record is less popular. So even though everybody feels like we should legalize marijuana, you're saying people by and large still look down at somebody that just got out of jail for marijuana like they're a piece of shit? I don't think so. I think just, having a record and being in jail before, period, kind of has a mark on somebody, but I don't think marijuana is anything different than anything else. There's some things that you definitely don't want anybody to know you went to jail for. I don't think marijuana is one of them. And even employers are starting to warm up to the idea of hiring people that, you know, smoke marijuana in their spare time. So people really don't. I mean, it's 2017, man. People really don't give a shit about marijuana anymore. So, good job, California. My Legalize does not have anything in it that would help you if you got charged even the day after it passes into law. So, I mean, it does have protections and limits and all that shit, but if you were charged the day before, you might be in trouble. On to some of we have the opioid crisis. We have a University of New Mexico study that finds the medical marijuana program enrollees decreased opioid use. University of New Mexico study is the latest to suggest that cannabis could be a tool in the opioid epidemic. The study, which observed 37 habitual opioid-using chronic pain patients who chose to enroll in the state's medical cannabis program, and 29 patients with similar conditions who chose not to enroll in the program, found a 47% reduction in daily opioid dosage in patients who also used cannabis. The medical cannabis program enrollment was also associated with 17 times higher age and gender-adjusted odds of stopping opioid prescriptions and 5 times higher odds of reducing daily opioid dosages. The patients who were not enrolled in the medical cannabis program actually had a 10% increase in self-reported daily opioid dosages over the 21-month observation period. Now, we talk about the opioid crisis and how, you know, people are dying every few minutes and so on and so forth. I always like to do hypothetical situations because they're so true, and I know so many people that are in these situations. Over the years, I've known people, and I've known a lot of people that have actually died of opioid overdoses. One of the things that happens is that somebody gets into a regimen of taking pills for their pain in a pain management situation, but sometimes the opioids don't work right or don't work at all, and they end up taking like a double dose or a triple dose throughout the day. And, you know, every once in a while, that person dies because they took too many, trying to get rid of the pain. If you can smoke marijuana to take care of the pain, you know, that's not going to be a problem. And if you know, like they say, you take opioids and you do marijuana, it basically makes it so you take less of the opioids. Well, no shit. And then, you know, if you're still taking them at all, and you're definitely not taking like, oh man, this 2 Vicodins didn't help the pain go away, so I'm going to eat 2 more. And then later on, you're like, I better eat 5 this time. You know, some people don't realize how easy it can be to overdose on something like Vicodins. Jacob Virgil, UNM Associate Professor of Psychology and one of the study authors, said that the study's results, quote, highlighted the necessity of more extensive research into the possible uses of cannabis as a substitute for opioid painkillers, especially in the form of placebo-based randomized controlled trials and larger sample observational studies. Quote, if cannabis can serve as an alternative to prescription opioids for at least some patients, legislators in the medical community may want to consider medical cannabis programs as a potential tool for combating the current opioid epidemic, he said in a press release. I say to that, no shit. What is the fucking holdup? Oh yeah, Chris Christie was in charge of the opioid commission, I forgot. Survey respondents enrolled in the medical cannabis program reported improvements in pain reduction, quality of life and social life, activity levels, and concentration 1 year after enrolling in the program. Yeah, again, I say to that, no shit. To manage pain with opioids, you're pretty much going to be laying flat on your back most of the time. And what kind of quality of life is that? I don't really know. I wouldn't want to know. The study is called Association Between Medical Cannabis and Prescription Opioid Use in Chronic Pain Patients, a preliminary cohort study, and it was published in PLOS One. T.G. Brandfall is a journalist by trade and has been covering the cannabis industry news for Ganjapreneur since 2014. He also is the host of the Ganjapreneur.com podcast and currently lives in Burlington, Vermont. Thanks for the hookup, dude. I'll read you later. And in other health news, Parkinson's disease? Sure, why not? CBD has been shown to have neuroprotective and antipsychotic effects. It may also improve sleep disturbances and quality of life in Parkinson's patients. A 2005 study published in the journal Neurobiology of Disease was one of the earliest studies to show that CBD may help Parkinson's disease. The researchers found that CBD had neuroprotective effects in animal models of Parkinson's. Since then, more research on CBD and Parkinson's has emerged. Overall, studies indicate that CBD may be able to improve many aspects of Parkinson's disease, including movement impairments, psychosis, sleep disturbances, and quality of life. Movement dysfunctions. One of the most characteristic symptoms of Parkinson's disease is dystonia, or disordered movement. Movement symptoms result from a loss of dopamine-producing cells in the brain. A 2017 study determined CBD might help the movement impairment in Parkinson's by interacting with the receptor known as GPR6. See, this is what studies do for you. They give you actual things that you can read and be like, hey, this is why this works for this, you know? And that's why we need these studies. I'm for more studies, and anybody that's not for more studies is got to be crazy or against legal, against the efficacy of cannabis being revealed, obviously. The researchers found that CBD blocks this receptor, causing dopamine levels to increase. They believe that some of the effects of CBD observed in patients with Parkinson's can be explained by its action on this receptor. Neuroprotection. A 2005 study found that CBD has neuroprotective effects on dopamine-producing cells in mice. It was suggested that these effects may be due to the antioxidant or anti-inflammatory properties of CBD. Researchers exposed the animals to a chemical toxin that kills dopamine-producing brain cells and then administered CBD. They found that CBD reduced the extent of the damage. This study suggests that CBD may be able to protect human brains from the progressive dopamine neuron loss seen in Parkinson's disease. The same group of researchers published a 2007 study looking at when CBD was most effective at protecting neurons. They discovered CBD was most effective if it was administered immediately after exposure to the toxin. When CBD was given a week after the toxin was applied, they found it didn't have the same beneficial effects. Psychosis, or loss of touch with reality, is a lesser known and difficult to manage symptom of Parkinson's disease. In a 2009 trial published by the Journal of Psychopharmacology, CBD was given to 6 patients with Parkinson's for 4 weeks with doses beginning at 150 milligrams a day. The patients in the trial showed remarkable improvements in their psychotic symptoms when treated with CBD. The researchers concluded that CBD was not only effective, but it was also safe and well tolerated. Quality of life. A 2014 trial involving 21 patients found that CBD could improve measures of quality of life for patients with Parkinson's disease. The study found that daily doses of 75 and 300 milligrams of CBD did not have any significant effects on motor dysfunction or neurodegeneration, but quality of life was found to be significantly improved. This effect may be explained by the antidepressant, antianxiolytic, antipsychotic, and sedative effects of CBD. Parkinson's disease, sleep disturbances, is associated with very unusual form of sleep disturbance. The disturbances are collectively referred to as REM behavior disorder. During REM sleep, our bodies lose muscle tone, which prevents us from physically acting out in our dreams in bed. However, the REM sleep behavior disorder, the body no longer loses muscle tone, causing patients to act out in their dreams. This may involve punching, pushing, yelling, swearing, and swearing while sleeping. In a series of case studies, doctors observed improvements in patients who use CBD. They found that doses of 75 to 300 milligrams of CBD taken daily could reduce or eliminate entirely the symptoms of REM sleep behavior disorder. Sounds pretty much like if you get Parkinson's disease, you're going to want to have a lot of CBD around. That's what it sounds like to me. So what about THC? CBD shows promise in treating symptoms of Parkinson's disease. However, it is not the only cannabinoid that may help. Researchers are also looking at whether THC can treat Parkinson's as well. A 2014 study found that movement dysfunction in Parkinson's patients improved when using THC-rich marijuana. These improvements were found in overall movement deficiencies and specific motor dysfunctions like tremor, rigidity, and slowed movements. The study also noted that these patients showed improvements in sleep and pain. This suggests that Parkinson's patients may benefit from using a combination of cannabinoids. THC and CBD, when used together, may help target a wider range of Parkinson's symptoms and may offer a better overall improvement than either cannabinoid used alone. Drawbacks of THC. THC is a psychoactive cannabinoid, and its mind-altering effects may not be well tolerated by some patients. Like I always say, there's people that like to smoke weed, and there's people that they just don't like it. They just don't like the high. And there's probably a million reasons why that is. One thing I've learned is you're never going to change the mind of these people. No matter how much the medical marijuana might benefit some of these people, if they hate marijuana, they hate marijuana. THC, they're never going to like it. Because they get that paranoia and that anxiety and those panic attacks. That's another thing. A lot of people do, they get them effects. And nothing you can do about it, I guess. THC is known to increase the risk of psychosis. I've been arguing with people about this, and I might have to study up more on this, but I don't see how the correlative studies that I've seen that say this, I don't see how they get there. There's no trigger mechanism. There's no causation really demonstrated. It's just, hey, you know what? THC, and these people had psychotic episodes. All right, these people were schizophrenic patients for the most part. So I'm not sure what they're talking about. You know, like people self-medicate. Marijuana is obviously the most prevalent thing out there to self-medicate with besides alcohol. And maybe they did have an episode, but I don't see how you could say that it was because of the weed. This could potentially aggravate symptoms of psychosis in patients with Parkinson's disease. I would have to say you're going to need to have more science to say statements like either of those, but that's just me. THC can also cause an increase in heart rate and is associated with an increased risk of heart attack. I don't believe the heart attack part. I really don't. You know, I've heard this before. The increased heart rate, I believe that because I can feel that sometimes if I take too big of a hit. But I think this is also associated with maybe holding your breath too long for the heartbeat to really start getting going. It's because your body's trying to catch up or whatever. You like stop breathing for a minute. That's just stupid anyway. You don't need to do that. But anyway, why am I talking about this? Because heart attack, they're just flying on fucking like total bullshit here. Somebody has a heart attack, I guarantee you they got cheeseburgers. I guarantee you they got something else. They got heart disease is a fucking hereditary factor in their bloodline. So this increased risk of a heart attack, everything is an increased risk of having a heart attack. Slam a fucking door too hard and somebody near you might have a heart attack. Come on. So just get out of here with that. The increased heart rate is something that everybody that smoked weed at one time or another has probably experienced. So you can scare people easily by being like, oh, you know that when your heart was beating really hard after you got that head rush from that hit, yeah, you could have a heart attack. You're fucking just goofy putting these statements out there. I don't even know who I'm reading anymore at this point. Well, they didn't care to credit themselves, maybe? Nope, not at all. Sorry about that. I usually don't read shit that ain't at least they don't credit their own author. But maybe it's Mantis, who knows? The way they're talking about it is like, you know, CBD is better. Here's what I say is if some of these effects of THC are unpleasant to you, you can counter those with the CBD. Just take more CBD. And CBD, you can't overdose on it. You know, it won't, you know, it might have sedative effects, but that doesn't increase if you take more of it, you know. So CBD is not like a sleeping pill or some shit. But I guess the bottom line is there's a lot of good studies out there to make the case for CBD being something that treats Parkinson's symptoms really good, and THC also. So where are we at now? How does cannabis help PTSD patients? Post-traumatic stress disorder is an anxiety condition caused by a traumatic experience like military combat. In many states with medical marijuana, PTSD is one of the qualifying conditions. Here's everything you need to know about PTSD and cannabis. Controlling learned factors. Research has found ample evidence that fear learning contributes significantly to many anxiety pathologies, including PTSD. Learned fear from traumatic experience can trigger fight or flight reflexes in appropriate times. For example, a soldier who ran over a bag which contained an IED could be put into panic by a similar looking bag in an ordinary safe shopping mall. As a result, adrenaline and stress levels get out of whack, causing changes in brain chemistry. Scientists have found CB1 receptors signal the deactivation of traumatic memories. People with PTSD have been found to have endocannabinoid deficiency. There is a theory that cannabinoids from cannabis can fill the void left by a lack of endocannabinoids. Many medications for treating PTSD offer temporary relief at best and come with adverse side effects. Research published last year on CBD revealed a potential for treating anxiety-related disorders. CBD is the main non-psychoactive component of cannabis. It has medical properties that can be consumed without getting an individual high. Who cares about the fucking high? That's always such a big deal. Now with PTSD patients, some are gonna approach the THC high differently or whatever. So, you have CB1 and CB2 receptors, and one is for cannabinoid or CBD, and one is for THC. One way PTSD patients have been coping with learned fears is with exposure therapy. Exposure therapy is when someone with PTSD is exposed to the stimuli that trigger their traumatic memory in a safe space. The goal is to desensitize the patients to the trigger. This process is referred to as extinction. CBD can enhance extinction, which could help PTSD patients inhibit learned factors. Ingesting CBD can also decrease fear expression and disrupt memory reconciliation, which is responsible for strengthening long-term memories. Certain states that didn't previously allow PTSD patients to acquire medical marijuana are coming around because of the research in favor of cannabis as an alternative treatment. In fact, the New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed legislation just this month granting police officers, firefighters, and war veterans suffering from PTSD access to medical marijuana. What about everybody else, man? Are you like one of these people that don't think anybody else has PTSD or something? Many of our veterans are suffering from PTSD, and the medical community has determined that marijuana can be helpful treatment in some areas, Cuomo said during a Veterans Day parade. And part of our commitment to do everything we can to do if there are veterans who are suffering and we can make a treatment available, we want to. Why don't you make it available for everybody? Your medical marijuana program sucks. And I'm not going to read this because who gives a fuck, but up in way up north in Michigan, there's this abandoned JCPenney just kind of hanging out. And, you know, that's pretty lame. They're everywhere like that too. But somebody wants to buy it and turn it and grow weed, turn it into a big grow op. And I say do it, you know. Why not? And it's a sign of the times, man. It's a sign of the times. Big freaking ridiculous expensive stupid department stores with all this overhead. Look at these bricks. You want to talk about brick and mortar? This motherfucker is like 1 billion bricks. Escalators, fancy showrooms for bullshit that nobody ever buys. How does this business model ever a thing? I mean, we stopped going to malls before the fucking internet was even a thing to go shopping at. But yeah, you know, sign of the times. Turn it into a fucking grow op. All right, we got a good person that smokes weed. I don't know who she is, but apparently some person that was on a soap opera in the UK called EastEnders. Apparently there's this reality TV show that they're doing. It's a 3-part series called Gone to Pot. And I don't know. Let's just check this clip out maybe real quick. I wasn't trying to do too much into the story.
But for the sisters, marijuana is more than just medicine.
I'm gonna roll joints.
They also smoke it, and the marijuana they smoke does contain THC, the compound that gives you a psychoactive high.
It's not the first thing that happens in the morning, but sometime during the day while the women are making the medicine, someone will walk in with a joint and say, does anybody want? And the women will partake. Freya, do you want to pass it around? Is anybody going to try it?
I
Does anybody
don't
wanna...
smoke.
No, it's not tobacco.
No, but I can't inhale. I suffer from asthma, and smoking really affects me in a bad way, so I cough a lot.
Eat a gummy bear.
Linda? No, thanks not. It's too
I know Biggs won't do it. But Pam seems much more open to the idea of trying it.
It was weird to see Pat Butcher, that's her name, isn't it? EastEnders, smoking a joint. She had a go, she did. I've got to give her a credit there. She had a go at everything she did.
That first puff with the nuns, after a few minutes, just get a lovely, relaxed feeling.
Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over.
But for the sisters, marijuana is more than just medicine.
There you have it. Your good person that smokes weed for the week. Pam St. Clement. So, yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Like I said, I was going to do, we do have a new segment to end out the show with. And it's going to be pretty basic this time. And this is because over the years, and I've been growing for a long time, over the years I've always had people come up to me and they want to know what my secret is. Or they want to grow tips in general, you know, or they're just starting out, they want to know what's going on. And I get that. And the first thing I always do is I always tell them to go buy a book. I don't care what book. Buy a book. I'm not one of these people that's going to like tell you one book's better than the other, or say this person don't know what they're talking about when, you know, you look at comparisons from book to book. When I first started growing, let's see here. Well, one of the books that I bought in that era, where maybe not first. I think first I bought the book, The Grower's Bible. Actually, I think I borrowed it. Well, first we had this one, Ed Rosenthal's Marijuana Grower's Handbook. And this, I think that was like 1983 when I had that. And it's a phenomenal book, believe me. It's a great book. It's basically top to bottom, man. You learn everything. And it's a great piece of work. Also at the time, one of the what I thought was a better one, just because it's a better worded book. Jorge Cervantes, Marijuana Horticulture Indoor Outdoor Medical Growers Bible. You'd have to like start growing just in the last 5 years to maybe not have heard of who Jorge is. Maybe. Even then, you should still know who he is or seen his videos that he's made from time to time. This book is phenomenal, and it's a great read too. It's just full of fun things that, little stories, little side stories and examples of how to do things. And he has a vast array of friends that help him out with little tips and traps and stuff. I mean, this is a great book, and it's also a good reference manual. It has basically like things you would never think of and things that you might want to know later, little details, just all the knowledge you need. And it's very important that you read a book about growing weed before you start growing weed. I'm not just saying that because I did it, and it's a good idea anyway, but you should just do it because if you have that much of a passion for something and you plan on doing it right, you might as well do it by learning everything you can about it in one big heavy dose. And this isn't going to make you a genius. Now, one of the things I did when I first read my first book, which was once again the Ed Rosenthal one, was that I went through it and took notes, chapter by chapter. This is actually okay. Yeah, I mean, Ed Rosenthal, Jorge Cervantes, they're getting old. I'm getting old. Shit. But that's what there was in the early 80s when I was coming up and I started getting interested in basically marijuana in general. I like this. This is kind of like the story about these guys, You go through these books and you can take notes if you want, or you can read them. Like the Jorge one is such a good reference book. It has like each section has its own color, page frames, so it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool book to own. Just skip down here for a second. Oh yeah, I seen a section on I was just randomly going through this earlier and seen a cool section on sexing plants, right here. Well, maybe. Yeah, I think this was it. So it's pretty important. Why is that my grow tip for you? You're like, damn it, I thought you were going to make it, tell me how I can get 10 pounds per plant or some shit. Why is this the grow tip? Well, this is the first grow tip, first of all. And if you're just starting out, you need to do this. That's all there is to it. And again, like I said, I'll go back here and I'm going to be clear. There's really no point in making a fuss out of which one. Now, some of them are specific. Like this is how to grow indoors, how to grow medical marijuana, all this other shit. or some of them might not be what you think it is. Like this book here, Ed Rosenthal's Big Buds. It's just a book full of big buds. It's like, oh, this is a calendar, in fact. And then there's books like that that are just strain books, or how to make hash, or how to make different things, different ways to make hash. The book, you'll run into other grow manuals. The Mel Frank books, and the Ed Rosenthals, to me, and the Jorge, those are the most useful authors that I've read in my time. Now, there might be some people that have came through since then. I'm looking down here and I don't really see it. Nobody really are going to stand out as much as those three that I mentioned. So I highly recommend, of course, this original gangster Jorge, Grower's Bible, as would anybody. And then furthermore, when you're growing, when you get into it, once you get going and you run into problems, if you have this book, you'll be fine. Also, this book might not have specific things that you run into according to your setup and all kinds of other variables that, even Jorge Cervantes, as smart as he is and as long as he was doing it, he might not have covered it. The internet is full of a vast resource of message boards and stuff where you can basically go find people that will help you out. And some of the ones that were pretty big when I first started getting into that back in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, were like Grass City forums. Are they that old? I'm not sure. I mean, I've been on the internet talking to people about growing since IRC was a thing, since that was the way to talk to people on the internet. So I don't know. Like, those are good places to go, but I guarantee you my advice is to read a book first. Take notes if you want or don't. It don't matter. And I'm not saying you're going to read a book and you're going to know everything there is to know. And it's not a thing where while you're reading it, do the thing that it's telling you like it's some kind of a bake a cake thing. I'm just saying read a book because it's going to pique your interest. It's going to leave an impression. And it's going to make you feel a little bit smarter and more confident going in. And it might preemptively prevent you from doing some really novice, like, learning curve, first time grower type shit that a lot of people will do. And even if you are, on message boards and reading that way to try to learn how to grow weed, there might be some real basic dumb little things that you do wrong or forget to do or don't take serious enough, and they could fuck you over. So reading a book ahead of time might kind of bang them dings out a little bit. And it is my grow tip for the week on the weekly podcast. And that was my show overall. So thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and comment down below if you got some kind of something to say about something you've seen on the show, or want to give me any feedback. Just let me know.